Good morning. Welcome to the Friday, June 14th, 2024 session of the California Coastal Commission. Just like to say again how incredible our time has been here in Morro Bay. It's just such a beautiful area, and the whole central coast of California is just absolutely remarkable. So it's been a wonderful chance for us to visit this area. All right, so I'd like to start with roll call, please. Ms. Morris? Ms. Miller? Morris. Whoa, it's a bad sign. There isn't even a Morris, right? I don't even know where that came from.
Commissioner Cummings.
Here.
Commissioner Eckerly.
Here.
Commissioner Kunkel.
Here.
Commissioner Lowenberg.
Here.
Commissioner Newsom.
Here.
Commissioner Rice.
Here.
Commissioner Turnbull Sanders.
Here.
Commissioner Urdanga.
Presente.
Chair Hart.
Present. Did you get Commissioner Turnbull Sanders?
Yes,
Okay, so we have a quorum.
you have a quorum.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Let's move to virtual meeting procedures, please.
Good morning. Excuse me. This Coastal Commission meeting is occurring both in person and through Zoom. This meeting is also being webcast and can be viewed online at cal-span.org. If you have access to the internet and wish to watch or listen to the meeting only and not speak on an item, we recommend you use the CalSpan website. Those who wish to address the Commission today can do so in person, through the Zoom platform, or by phone. The speaker request forms may be found on the Commission's webpage. Paper forms and a scannable QR code for paperless submittal are available on the Commission's staff table just outside the meeting room. For those on Zoom, we have posted virtual hearing procedures on the Commission's agenda webpage, which is a guide on providing comments via Zoom or by phone. For members of the public speaking during general public comment, you may be given up to 2 minutes to speak at the discretion of the chair. Requests to speak during general public comment period will not be accepted after 8:30 a.m. on each day of the meeting. In order to provide the opportunity for the broadest range of public participation, you may speak on a specific item one time only each month. Those speaking on an agenda item that is not general public comment are typically allowed 2 to 3 minutes to speak at the discretion of the chair. We will accept a request to speak on an item up until the chair opens the hearing on that particular item. If you have access to the internet, please go to the Commission's webpage and click on the link to fill out a speaker request. If you do not have internet access or prefer to testify by phone, please call the Commission staff at 562-477-9089. Again, that number is 562-477-9089. Staff will provide you with a telephone call-in number and instructions for how to participate and provide testimony by phone. We will manage speakers coming in and out of the meeting through a meeting organizer. When it is your time to address the Commission, the organizer will invite you to turn on your video and microphone or provide instructions on how to unmute the phone. Madam Chair, that concludes the virtual hearing procedures.
Great, thanks so much, Vail. All right, we'll move to agenda changes. Mr. Schwing?
Thank you, Chair Hart, and good morning to the Commission and to everybody who's joining us today. There are some changes from the agenda changes sheet that was published earlier this week, so I'll run through everything now. Starting with item 6B, this is permit application 523-211, the Bosz project in Sunset Beach, that's postponed. Item 10B, the City of Newport Beach's LCP amendment, which is just a time extension only. That's moved to consent. Item 11A, this is permit application A5 LGB 2260 from the City of Laguna Beach. This is the Anita Street Stairs project. That's moved to consent. Item 11B, it's permit application A5 LGB 220025, the Gray application. That is moved to consent. Item 11C, permit application 522-938, the Palkovic project out of San Clemente that is postponed. Item 11D, it's application 523-532, the University of California Natural Reserve System project in Irvine, that's moved to consent. And item 13A, the City of San Diego's LCP amendment, their 2022 Land Development Code update, that matter was withdrawn. And that concludes the agenda changes.
Thanks, Carl. You know, I'm afraid I'm going to miss one. So it's at 11A and 11C?
11A, 11B,
11B, okay, thanks.
and
That's what I missed.
11D are all moved to consent.
11C is postponed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so moving forward with the agenda, I'd like now to open the hearing for general public comment. I understand we have approximately, how many now?
27.
27 total. So folks, what we're going to do this morning is we're going to have public comment until 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., those that have not been able to speak will we'll hear them at the end of the hearing, just due to a desire to maintain a quorum for the items we have on the agenda. So we'll open general public comment for those that are here in the room, please.
For members of the public, I will be announcing the names of the upcoming speakers and invite you to speak when it is your turn. Each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes during general public comment. In order to allow for live video testimony on Zoom, we will be bringing you in as panelists. As we bring you in, your Zoom will reload, which may take a moment. To speed up this process, we will bring several people in at a time, but please remain muted and keep your video off until we ask you to speak. After your time is up, you will be moved back to attendee mode. For members of the public present in the room, I will call your names in the order that they appear on our sign-up list. When you hear your name, please line up behind the podium and announce yourself with your name when you approach to speak. Several helpful tips. There's a raise hand function that will help us find you in the attendee list. If you are using a phone for audio, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. If you are participating by Zoom, you should see a button on your Zoom screen. If you have signed up to speak for this item and are able to do so, please raise your hand now. When it is your time to speak, we will invite you to unmute and turn on your camera. You can unmute yourself on a phone by dialing *6. Please remember to state your name for the record. We're going to open with the in-person speakers, starting with Lucia Casalenuovo, Jeffrey Robert Heller, and Judy Setting.
Wow, you are number one. In many ways, you are number Unfortunately, only two. Sorry.
It's a pleasure to be here. Really, thank you for coming. I cannot thank you enough for what you did for Oceano Beach community. And we will make it. We didn't make it through the first judge, but we'll make it through the next one. Do not fear. Your wisdom will prevail. The next big challenge is the airport. You know that it's the airport in Oceano, 60 acres of wetland, precious wetland, paved, fenced off to all of us, just for the use of a handful of private pilots, mostly. You know, climate change and sea level rise are real. Last May, it was the 12th consecutive month with the average temperatures higher than any other ever recorded in history. So we need to reduce fossil fuel burning. We need to drive less. We need to stop covering the wetlands, and we need to reclaim those that have been erroneously covered up, like the airport in Oceano. 60 acres of wetland doesn't seem like a lot, but every little thing helps. We would like to have the wetlands back. We can have trails, we can have parking for beach goers, we can have soccer fields for the community to use. Definitely Oceano does not need an airport. So you have requested, the airport sits right next to the wastewater plant. And you have requested that the wastewater plant be removed eventually, I think in 47, because it is in the flood zone. Well, the same rationale should apply to the airport. They are right next to each other. The airport has to be moved away from the wetlands and from the coast. Thank you. And if you can't remove it, don't make it any bigger
Thank you,
nor any
Lucia.
better.
Thanks so much for coming in person.
Jeffrey Robert Heller, Judy Setting, Patrick McGivney.
Jeff Heller, Madam Chair,
Morning.
Commissioners, hardworking staff. I am a very happy resident of Morro Bay. I served on our city council from 2018 to 2022. Much of what we dealt with at that time was updating our general plan and local coastal program, which I'm very happy with. And there's one thing I want to bring to your attention this morning that was absolutely unanimous from the residents of Morro Bay. Of all the changes that came through that 8-year process, and thank you and your staff for the thousands of hours you put in to update that plan, and the millions of dollars you gave to the city to help us hire the consultants to do that. The one thing that I found absolutely unanimous amongst the residents, and that's hard to find in Morro Bay because we tend to disagree about a lot of things, but the one thing that was unanimous was the change in the land use and the zoning designation for the industrial property that now has the decommissioned PG&E power plant on it. From the very beginning, our residents identified that as a waterfront opportunity site, 107 acres, adjacent to our bay, adjacent to the Pacific Ocean, coastal resources that are irreplaceable. We think it's time that that became visitor-serving commercial, and you agreed with us. So that land use change, that zoning designation change from industrial to visitor-serving commercial is the most important part of that 8-year process that you helped us with, and I thank you for that. Now, that may come under challenge because that property is currently owned by an energy company that wants to put a grid-scale battery storage project there. We understand the threats of climate change. We've moved our sewer plant at great cost to our residents 3 miles inland and uphill to deal with potential sea level rise. We're on the front lines of climate change. But the use of that land, highest best use is visitor serving commercial. Thank you for your time, and we hope you support us in the future. Thank you.
Judy Setting, Patrick McGivney, Betty Winholtz.
Esteemed commissioners, good morning and thank you for your service. I am Judy Setting, 57-year Morro Bay resident. Coming out of a year-long COVID shutdown, a majority of residents learned of closed and special meetings to approve a 600-megawatt BESS in a dangerous location and an MOU that traded away our $1 lien to own the almost 100-acre power plant property. Appalled and frightened for Morro Bay's future, we proceeded to vote in a new mayor with a 1,900 vote margin out of only 51 total voters. We call ourselves Morro Bay, a small community with bountiful natural beauty and environmental benefits. We wish to protect and share these assets, especially with children, as they are our future. Please help us. We do not know who else to ask. Once again, our county supervisors and a small group of citizens have deemed Morro Bay the sacrificial lamb for economic growth. This first happened in the 1950s when Morro Bay's protector, commercial fisherman, and activist Joe Giannini went on a 3-day fishing mission. During his absence, the county, knowing residents did not want this industry sealed the deal with PG&E. Big Industry won. As a result, we have endured an industrial eyesore, noise pollution, and acid rain spewing from the stacks, which resulted in hundreds of us receiving reimbursement for destroyed paint on our cars. We have no clue as to the effects on our lungs and skin. In addition, we are left with a contaminated, toxic mess. How is it possible that applying deed restrictions exempts PG&E from cleaning up their money grab while you can, industrial toxic mess? My correspondence with Yang at the DTSC has at every turn pointed to protection for PG&E and not Morro Bay residents. Will the current owner and best proposer be able to do the same? It appears big money corporations are well protected. Will you, as our official coastal protectors, guide and help us protect Morro Bay's residents, natural beauty and environmental benefits? Thank you so very much, and thank you for being gracious about the extra time.
Patrick McGivney, Betty Winholtz, Jeremiah O'Brien.
Just so you know, I am Patrick McGivney from Baywood Park. Our community appreciates your commitment to the coast, to the habitats and species and the coastal resources we all depend on. You don't get paid enough for sitting here. But just so you know, most who have been here that you've seen in Morro Bay for the last few days vote on your behalf, work for legislation that supports your mandates and gives you the authority to keep on keeping on. It was unfortunate that yesterday you acted upon misinformation, deceit, and hyperbole when you approved the Los Osos community plan. You had good intentions, but you got conned by a bunch of white guys working in their own self-interests. I'm 77 years old with enough education and life experience to understand what happened. The county has never been a friend of Los Osos. We've never had a supervisor from our area.
Sir, because we already had, this was an item that was agendized yesterday, and we already ruled
I'm
on
not
it.
talking about this yesterday.
I know, but you can't speak in general public comment on an item on the agenda, and since it was on the agenda during this hearing, if you want to talk about something that's not on the agenda, that's appropriate.
Okay, we'll talk. Well, I'll talk about the. I'll talk about the adjudication of our basin. That wasn't on the agenda yesterday.
Well, I think in general, the Los Osos issue was fully discussed yesterday. We spent several hours on it, as you know, and it was on the agenda. So if you'd like to speak about something else in the time you have, that'd be great.
The basin plan, court approved, has no oversight, and there's so much that hasn't been implemented that was required, but the court will never hear about this. They're informed every year of the health of our basin through the required annual report, which always paints a rosy picture like you heard yesterday. So please keep your eyes on our basin, but there's not much you can do to undo the changes that are coming. Just keep on keeping on.
Betty Winholtz, Jeremiah O'Brien, and then we'll move to Zoom participants.
I want to make, I'm Betty Winholtz, I'm from Morro Bay. I want to make two suggestions in terms of your process. One, our city council here in Morro Bay, they start their closed session for 2 hours before they go into open session for 4. By hour 5, they're all glazed over, and I saw that here yesterday. I want to make the recommendation that you all cut your meetings shorter per day, because you're starting at 9 in the morning, and if you quit by 3, I think that most of your brain cells are still working, but when you go later, you're really, we can see it in your eyes. So I want to make that suggestion that you think about. And the reason I say that is yesterday, and I'm going to refer to an item yesterday as an example, that I'm wondering if you all heard that Caltrans has committed $1 billion to create bike trails along highways in California, as they've already done in Santa Barbara County and on I-8 east of San Diego. And rather than use coastal conservation money for bike trails, we could let Caltrans make that bike trail on Highway 1. My second point is, I don't know if you heard when I was talking about the natural area, that's actually an ESHA. So you approved yesterday for our county to pave our ESHA for a 12-foot wide bike lane loops. And that to me goes against your mandate, as it does for our Marine the Beach, which you also mistakenly approved yesterday. My second point that I want to make real quickly is I would recommend that you not do consolidated permits, as you have engaged, and rightfully so, the state of California to engage tribal and other communities. You're disengaging
Thanks,
local
Ms. Winholtz.
communities
Thank
from
you.
in participating.
Thank you.
Jeremiah O'Brien, and then we'll move to Zoom with Jennifer Creston, Adam Leverins, and then Alice McNally.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Coastal Commission and staff. My name is Jeremiah O'Brien. I'm the Vice President of the Morro Bay Commercial Fishermen's Organization. And I'm here today to talk about the lack of due diligence on the efforts for wind energy off of our coast. Anytime we do any large purchase in our lives, there's a lot of due diligence we have to do up front. And there's a lot that's missing here that I see before we go forward any further with this situation. Cost to consumer is one of the biggest issues I have. Nobody can identify the cost to consumer. What I have heard from each and every wind agency that I've talked to, we've been dealing with this here in Morro Bay since 2015. So we're going on a decade. And each and every one of them have said, when we build more of them, it will get cheaper. Well, as we can see by the start of this project, it's taking some time. So how much time are we talking about to get cheaper? And I'm thinking about mom and dad sticking a slice of toast in the toaster in the morning and sticking it, punching the button. How much is that going to cost them? Will Americans, will the people, will the taxpayer be able to afford this power until it gets all built out, which might be 10, 20 years from now? Anyways, another thing that's missing is how much diesel fuel does it take to arrive at wind energy? So all of the build out of this of this wind is done by diesel. So if you started a bank account and put all the diesel fuel in it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for the extra time.
Thank you.
Jennifer Creston, Adam Leverins, Alice McNally. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Creston, and I'd like you to run my video, please.
We're bringing it up right now.
Thank you. Actually, it's Ann Stenton's video.
Good morning, Chair Hart and honorable commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you for protecting low-cost access to our coast. My name is Ann Stenton, and I am a public school teacher and a member of the Newport Mooring Association. I'd like to thank the Commission and the South Coast District staff for looking into our concerns and showing interest in our concerns regarding the pending rate increases in Newport Harbor for the moorings. There's already a pretty significant price discrepancy charged for different tidelands uses in the harbor. And if this mooring rate increase goes through, as it was already approved by the Harbor Commission, we believe the city is looking to approve it. It's not only blatant price discrimination, but it's really going to impact those of us who can afford it the least, and that would be those of us who keep boats out in the middle of the bay and on the shore moorings. We have those moorings because we can't afford a dock. So this is our way to access the coast, for those of us with less income. When this mooring rate increase goes through, if it goes through, it's definitely going to knock a lot of us out of the harbor. My family for sure will be out. Last month we sent a letter asking coastal staff to require a coastal development permit for any substantial mooring rate increases. We believe this request is consistent with the Coastal Commission policy regarding the fact that a substantial increase in fees to access the water is considered a development, as indicated by coastal policy implemented by Peter Douglas on October 29th of 1993. Thank you so much for protecting this low-cost boating access in Newport Harbor. It means a lot to us, and we appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
And my comment is that the Harbor Commission is considering moorings at yacht clubs like marinas. And if moorings at yacht clubs are more like slips at marinas, under the Harbor Commission Netzer logic, shouldn't they pay a high percentage in rents and fees as the ratio to a slip to be fair and equitable? So they are excluding the mooring fields at yacht clubs for rate increases and applying only to the boats in the harbor. Thank you.
Adam Leverins, Alice McNally, Lily McLaughlin. Adam.
Good morning, and I too am speaking to you about the proposed 300 to 500% increases in mooring fees in Newport Beach. I've got a couple graphics. The first is a satellite image sourced from the city's pier permit fee setting website. People refer to piers as docks, using them interchangeably. And here we see 14 highlighted in yellow in the middle of the photograph, 14 boat berthing spaces at a Beacon Bay HOA affiliated dock, and they pay a combined total of $841.97 annually for the physical footprint of that pier. The boats actually, and I've just recently learned this, they pay nothing in fees for the space they encumber over the tidelands. There are 3 almost exact same docks affiliated with this HOA, so that's 42 boats paying for the dock, but no fees for the boats. And a Newport Beach Harbor Commissioner spent years on the board of that HOA. If I could have you call up my next slide, please. This is another highlighted in blue, a dock, a CDP approved under a Harbor Commissioner's name. They pay $352.80 a year. And again, that's for the square footage of the dock, nothing for the boat. And in the center of the image, in the upper part, you see a moored boat just yards away from that dock. The moored boat pays multiples more in fees. It has less access, no access to power or water, and yet they're proposing increasing the fee by 300 to 500%. And the autonomy the city has created this situation where those deciding these things are pier permit holders and yacht club members. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice McNally, Lily McLaughlin, Susan Kirks. Alice.
Good morning. For April 12th, Gary Hedrick of San Clemente Green and I submitted a photo presentation, and I spoke to the necessity of moving the nuclear waste stranded 108 feet from the surf at Songs further inland. Moving the waste further inland on site makes perfect sense, as the NRC siting and operating requirements are already in place. At that time, you said that you shared our concerns and voiced your commitment to look more closely into this situation. What actions have you taken? That would be my first issue. The second is Diablo Canyon. Close Diablo Canyon now. The best solution for dealing with the waste is not to make any more. Nuclear power may soon be no longer marketable, as the CEA and others have made 100% renewable green power available to customers. California now has more than 10 GWs of battery storage, and on the 16th of April, for the first time, batteries became the single largest contributor of power on the grid during the evening peak. Now is the time to close Diablo Canyon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily McLaughlin, Susan Kirks, and then James Brine.
Hi, my name is Lily and I'm an Orange County resident. I'm here to speak about that Magnolia Tank Farm project and its numerous issues. To start, I wanted to address that the area for the proposed development is in a zone that floods regularly. Recent rains have flooded the site, resulting in damaged vehicles that are currently stored there. Hardly being suitable for industrial use, building housing here is irresponsible. The Coastal Commission's approval of the rezoning for the site would go against their own sea level rise policy and set a precedent that would allow future housing developments to be built in flood risk zones in California. One of my biggest concerns as a 20-year-old that will soon be looking for housing of my own is the project's lack of affordable housing. As the housing crisis in Southern California and in Huntington Beach worsens, building over 200 multi-million-dollar homes in an already very developed and affluent area does not help solve this problem. Regardless of the proposal to include a small percentage of low-income housing units and the alleged support from some local unions, this project has no real commitment to build affordable housing on the actual site and may just allocate funds to be building affordable housing elsewhere. Additionally, due to Huntington Beach already having a history of violating California's housing law element, we can assume that low-income housing is not a priority for this project. The current housing surrounding the site all have estimated property values of well over $1 million. So if any low-income housing were to be built for this project, it's realistic that it would be built along the north edge, furthest from the beach and adjacent to the Ascon toxic waste dump, a potential threat to residents as it is loaded with toxins. I would also like to make a point that it's important for this issue to be brought up at a Coastal Commission meeting in Southern California so that local advocates have the opportunity to attend the meeting in person. Thank you.
Susan Kirks, James Brine, and then Paula Lima. Susan?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Hart, Vice Chair Escalante, commissioners and staff. I'm Susan Kirks, and I usually speak to your commission in my role with Madrone Audubon in Sonoma County. But briefly this morning, I'd like to share general information as a naturalist about American badger, a special status mammal in California, a California species of concern. The badger is an integral species to coastal prairie and inland grassland ecosystems. This mesopredator is also a keystone species for these ecosystems. In Marin and Sonoma counties, we have identified natal territories, or where adult female badgers are in residence to mate, give birth, and raise their young. These areas are especially important to protect. The badger does not have a threatened status, so habitat is not mandated to be protected. Thus, conservation of habitat conscientiously for this species is very important. Juvenile badgers disperse from their mother badger in summer, June through August. It can be a deadly time as they cross roads in naturally moving patterns and are often struck and killed. I appreciated your staff member, Peter Allen, for assisting me this week on an agenda item that you decided upon yesterday. He went above and beyond the call of duty, emailing and calling to clarify some information, which we did clarify late yesterday afternoon. And I also appreciated Commissioner Boczko's questions and her continued interest in whole ecosystems and species protections. Thank you.
James Brine, and then I believe James will be interpreting for Paula Lima, Carmen Luna, and Glindana Shevlin. James?
Just to clarify, Glindana Shevlin will be speaking in English, so
Okay.
she will not need interpretation.
I do not see Carmen in the list. Is Carmen with you?
I don't think she was able to make it, but hopefully if she's able to come on, then she'll raise her hand.
Okay, I'll call for her.
Appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable Chair Hart and Commissioners. My name is James Brine, and I'm speaking on behalf of Unite Here Local 11. First, we want to thank the Commission for your thoughts and comments on the Pacifica LCP yesterday, and we look forward to working with the city and the community to produce a strong ordinance when it comes back before you. In the years since the Commission voted to continue the Magnolia Tank Farm project, Huntington Beach has become the statewide example of cities fighting the production of new housing. Why do we care? This has real-life consequences for working people bearing the brunt of the housing crisis, and more importantly, their faith in politicians and state agencies. Recently, hotel workers and environmentalists testified against the American Tin Cannery project in Monterey. The project, as it was proposed, did not comply with the goals of the Coastal Act. The Commission nearly unanimously approved it with the exception of Commissioner Aguirre. To put our members' commitment to the Coastal Act in context, workers have risked their jobs to bring Coastal Act violations before the Commission and win millions of dollars for the people of California. Imagine our members' disillusionment when the Commission expedites the approval of a project like the ATC and sandbags the Magnolia Tank Farm. Not only will the tank farm maximize the goals of the Act by building low-cost accommodations and transforming a brownfield site with an old oil tanks into access to public green space, it will build affordable housing in Huntington Beach, which is being sued by the state because they do not want to build housing for people like our members. Please do not help cities like Huntington Beach become even more exclusive coastal enclaves and approve this project without further delay. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I'm going to leave you in as a panelist so that you can translate for Paula and Carmen.
Appreciate it.
Paula Lima, if you can hear me, please unmute and begin. Paula, to unmute, you can dial *6. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Sí.
¿Me escucha? Ok. Buenos días, honorable presidenta y comisionados. Mi nombre es Paola Lima y he sido ama de llaves en Balboa Bay Club en Newport Beach. Durante 6 años, los últimos 20 años viví en Costa Mesa y trabajé en el área, trabajé en el área de Newport, pero hace 2 años mi vivienda se volvió demasiado cara. Ahora vivo en Santa Ana, lejos de mi comunidad, del tráfico. Es un problema, tal que a menudo trato de salir al trabajo 1 hora más antes para evitarlo y asegurarme de llegar a tiempo. Muchos trabajadores como yo en el condado de Orange enfrentan estos desafíos. El proyecto del parque de tanques de Magnolia es una oportunidad para que la Comisión Costera marque una dirección en las crisis climática y en la vivienda, que empeoran cada día. Por favor, no lo demores más. Gracias.
Gracias, Paula. James?
Okay. Good morning, Honorable Chair and Commissioners. My name is Paula Lima, and I've been a housekeeper at Balboa Bay Club in Newport Beach for 6 years. For the past 20 years, I lived in Costa Mesa and worked in the Newport area. But 2 years ago, my housing became too expensive. Now I live in Santa Ana, far from my community. Traffic is such an issue that I often leave for work an extra hour early to avoid it and make sure that I arrive to work on time. So many workers like me live in Orange County are facing these challenges. The Magnolia Tank Farm project is an opportunity for the Coastal Commission to make a difference in the housing and climate crisis that are getting worse every day. Please do not delay it any longer.
Thank you. I see one participant in as iPhone. Carmen Luna, ¿eres tú? Carmen?
It might be Glendana.
I see the iPhone unmuted. I was able to get Glendana in as a panelist. Is Glendana with Carmen?
It might be Carmen then.
Okay, they're unmuted but not saying anything, so.
Hi, Austin, unmuted.
Okay, we're gonna just mute you, sorry. I don't see Carmen, so we can maybe come back, but I'll go to Glendana right now since they're in as a panelist.
Hi, I'm here. Hi, my name is Glendana. I want to thank the chair and the commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak today. I am Glendana Shevelin, and I live in Garden Grove. I'm a concierge at the Disneyland Hotel, where I've worked for 35 years. I have gotten a lot out of my time in the hospitality industry. I have a wide range of skills and forming a close relationship with coworkers and patrons. At the same time, in my long career, I have dealt with homelessness many times. I want to take vacations and the coastal vacations, but I want to think the Magnolia Tank Project will both create affordable place for working and to live affordably hotel rooms. It is a win for the Coastal Act, and I urge you to approve it without any further delay. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Next is Ruby Uchitil, followed by Joe Wilson, and then Cindy Abbott. Ruby, you should be able to unmute and begin.
Okay. Sorry, there's a few technical difficulties. One moment.
No problem.
Okay. Hi. Good morning and happy Friday. I'm here to bring to your attention the proposed Magnolia Tank Farm project in Huntington Beach. So I assert that this project is deeply flawed, and that's the decision to okay this rezoning would set a very dangerous precedent that could have disastrous future implications, especially for my generation. Instead of prioritizing the negation of this critically rising issue, it would only be exacerbating it to further profit-driven agenda. The suggested site is located directly next to the Ascon toxic waste dump, and if that wasn't enough, it's also on top of an earthquake fault and is prone to flooding. It's just a fundamentally unsound appeal being masqueraded as a concession to the current house.
You can keep going, Ruby. Sorry, I think we messed up on the alarm there.
Yeah, no problem. The surrounding areas are quoted around 1.5 to 2.5 million, according to Zillow. And even if there are statements saying that, yes, they will create affordable housing, affordable to who, we just have to figure that all out. Furthermore, it's essential to consider the risks associated with the Ascon waste disposal site itself. The site has been deemed safe in its current resting state, but the impact of its pollutants during active construction is a huge concern. The California Department of Toxic Substance Control states explicitly in their vapor intrusion, which is air pollution screening and evaluation guide, that soil gas and/or sub-slab soil gas data are above points of departure, indicating a potential future VI risk, which translates to it will not be safe as constructions will exacerbate health concerns. In 2019, increased activity at the site led to negative health impacts on nearby residents. These long-term health effects, particularly related to VI, have not been adequately studied. Ian, a resident boarding the Ascon dump and the proposed Magnolia Tank Farm site, reported pulmonary issues. He stated that these persistent symptoms among various residents and students in the area have overlapped. A series of them have done the simple math, and it's clear that they're not coincidences. While at the same time in the statement, Ascon's website stated, DTSC monitoring has not found any chemicals in the air above a level that causes public health concern. This, for me, raises serious worries about the transparency and accuracy of the information provided to the public by Ascon. So how can we truly guarantee the health and safety to current residents and the future residents that will be occupying the hypothetical proposed 250 homes if there's not a 100% guarantee of safety? Why put the health of thousands who are not previously at risk? Are the means able to safely justify the ends? And I assert that they are not. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Joe Wilson, followed by Cindy Abbott, and then Hein Austin.
Yes, good morning. This is Joe. Our Savor Beaches organization has consolidated our presentations this morning, and so I won't be speaking. You can move on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Cindy Abbott.
Good morning. I'm Cindy Abbott of Pacifica. I'd like to share a neologism or new word with you. Weedapting, defined as a community coming together through dialogue and problem solving for long-term planning to adapt to extreme storms, sea level rise, and other extreme weather events caused by climate change. This word was created in 2020 by Pacifica community members who remain hopeful for an enlightened approach to coastal resiliency. An approach that recognizes the dynamic nature of the California coast, anticipates and plans for a future that understands the power of the ocean, the bluffs that form the beaches, and respects all creatures, human and otherwise, that reside on or along our shore. The City of Pacifica's plan is the opposite, with a clear intention to continue the ineffective strategy of hard armoring into perpetuity, not only to protect existing infrastructure, but to allow and in fact encourage new development, a strategy that is the antithesis of the Coastal Act. At this time, the draft Pacifica LCLUP calls for special resiliency areas, or SRAs. These two areas in West Sharp Park and Rockaway Beach would carve out sections of the coast with a plan for hard surfaces and seawalls. Why? The answer is, as it unfortunately often is, development. Instead of a long-term and visionary strategy that brings forward a thoughtful and complete vision to Pacifica's coastline that moves future generations out of harm's way, the plan is to place more in these hazardous areas, ensuring the need to perpetuate armoring. Please stand strong as you always do, protecting the coast for all, and do not approve a plan that carves out sections of the beach. If they come before you, please say no to SRAs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Hein Austin, followed by Janet Rogers, and then Cassandra Bowe.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me? Can you show my slide?
We can hear you, and we did not receive slides from you, unfortunately. Sorry, sir.
Public comments. Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity. We're going back to Newport Beach. The city of Newport Beach has a long and well-documented history of not being equitable According to the Tidelands revenue of 2023, 800 moorings generated almost $1.2 million, while 800 docks generated less than $280,000. That's 75% less. If you were able to see my slide, it is a satellite image showing a very large dock. This dock, there are 800 docks in Newport Beach with 3,000 plus boats that contribute less than 25% of the trust revenues, as do 800 moorings with 800 boats. An online map calculator of this private dock shows that the highlighted area of the dock and the water covers about 5,400 square feet. This dock pays only $600 per year and can park 7 boats. 600 divided by 5,400 equals 11 cents per square foot per year. And a big dock like this with big yachts can form a private marina and pay generate a revenue as much as $100,000 in rent income. Notation B on this slide shows 40-foot mooring. A mooring of 1,200 square feet will pay $5 per square foot or $5,800 per year. C would be showing on my slide, shows the rate ratios between affluent dock permit holders and lower mooring permit holders. If the city was equitable, the rate ratio between docks and moorings would be 1-to-1. Today, this rate ratio is 1-to-12. Now the city wants us to pay 1-to-45. Finally, you are the only ones who can challenge this environmental injustice. The affluent dock owners on the Harbor Commission are not open to equitability. They will say anything to get the Coastal Commission to believe they are entitled to a 75% discount and that they are being fair. Thank you for protecting the equitability along our coast.
Thank you. Next is Janet Rogers, followed by Cassandra Vo, and then John Dow. Janet?
Yes. Hi, I'm Janet Rogers with the Embarcadero Coalition in downtown San Diego. Next slide, please. Let's fix that. Yeah, there we go. Staff received the Port Master Plan Amendment, the PMPA, supposedly a comprehensive replacement for the current Port Master Plan, but it isn't. The port divided the Embarcadero into 3 subdistricts. Then they removed the central section from the plan because it has a massive development called Seaport Project. However, the PMPA states that nothing is happening, and the current Seaport Village with 2-story buildings, lots of open space for all socioeconomic groups, 0 hotels will stay the same. That is not true. Next slide, please. Here's the current development in the Embarcadero. The prior picture is on its side. South is at the top right. The South Embarcadero is already blocked by the convention center. In the central Embarcadero, Seaport Village has 0 hotels and a few berths for the fishing fleet. There are lots of open water views from the promenade. Next slide, please. I added all the PMPA development in red and the central Embarcadero plans in purple. Seaport Village went from 0 hotel rooms to 2,050 rooms for its sequel evaluation. The PMPA leaves a walkway along the water's edge for Californians, and nearly everything else is privatized inland and on the water. Next slide, please. Here is a picture of the projects the PMPA says doesn't exist and isn't going to happen. The Seaport project would be the densest project on the California coast. On a small 26 acres, they plan 10 buildings, including 7 hotels and an event center. It wipes out the bay views with boats. Next slide, please. The port asks you to approve the PMPA with a huge lie as a cornerstone of the plan. Please make the port include the whole Embarcadero. Please don't risk your integrity or lose the public trust by approving this document. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cassandra Vo, John Dow, and then Susie Whitelaw.
Hello, I have a presentation.
Bringing it up now.
Got it, thank you.
Go ahead, Cassandra.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Vo. I'm a legal intern with the Surfrider Foundation. On behalf of Surfrider, I'm here to express opposition to plans by the Orange County Transportation Authority to seek permits for purported maintenance and repair and purported emergency stabilization along a 7-mile corridor of San Clemente's beaches. These plans will add substantial armoring to our beaches to protect the coastal rail line. As you can see here, this rail line is extremely close to the shore. OCTA has already placed significant revetments on these beaches to protect the rail from erosion. Although these have sometimes been conducted through an emergency permit, OCTA has not completed their follow-up CBP, and thus OCTA has never completed the proper coastal resource impact analyses that would avoid or mitigate significant impacts caused by this work. Next slide, please. This tidal encroachment has been completely predictable over time. The tides have steadily progressed inland, regularly depositing seaweed just underneath where the rail operates. A long-term project that fits the scope requires robust environmental review through a full rather than emergency permit. The Commission must ensure that OCTA completes full follow-up permits, ensuring that the impacts of emergency permitted work are properly mitigated. This mitigation can and should include a mandate to produce a plan with a timeframe to move the rail inland. Next slide, please. OCTA's efforts to avoid environmental review and mitigation threaten irreversible damage to the public access and enjoyment of our beaches, including at San Clemente State Beach, shown here on a recent gray Thursday morning. OCTA's proposed revetment, which is at least 50 feet wide and 2/3 of a mile long, would occupy the remaining sandy beach and only worsen erosion here. We ask that Commission staff provide status updates on any pending or anticipated applications from OCTA to armor these public trust lands of immense natural value. Thank you.
Thank you. John Dow, Susie Whitelaw, and then Naomi Nightingale. And we have 2 more after that. You are on mute, John.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Dow, Save Our Beaches, San Clemente, speaking again regarding Orange County Transit Authority's beach destroying actions in San Clemente. Over 25% of San Clemente's once sandy beaches are now covered with massive boulders, and another 50% are under imminent threat if OCTA is not stopped. One must ask, how does OCTA get away with causing irreparable damage to an irreplaceable coastline in a state so committed to protecting and preserving its coastal resources? It's their aggressive circumvention of the normal permitting process that's allowed the construction of these hard armored revetments. The 3 tactics they use: first, they cynically exploit the emergency permitting process by failing to take proactive, nature-based measures to protect their tracks. This results in a foreseeable threat becoming an emergency, the issuance of an emergency permit, and thus no meaningful pre-construction review. Second way, they dump boulders under a routine maintenance permit and use this ruse to materially add riprap, both in terms of tonnage and footprint. And the last one, they just dump rocks without any permit. The public's interest is being sacrificed to the parochial self-interest of OCTA and their crony consultants and contractors. And out-of-control, taxpayer-funded bureaucracy is unnecessarily destroying public beaches. This is wrong, and the consequences are tragic. OCTA must be required to go through the normal permitting process where impacts and benefits can be thoroughly assessed and alternatives vetted. A process that seeks the least environmentally damaging practical alternative. A process that will operate to achieve what is in the greater public's interest, not just OCTA's. Too much is at stake. We therefore request this Commission deny any future emergency permits to OCTA and require normal permitting for any future track protection efforts, not solely based on sand replenishment. We also ask for the imposition of meaningful mitigation to directly address past damages to deter OCTA from future harmful activity. Thank you.
Susie Whitelaw, Naomi Nightingale, George Hilkema, and then Anna Christensen. If you were in the meeting, please raise your hand. Susie?
Dr. Susie Whitelaw with Save Our Beaches, San Clemente. Orange County Transportation Authority is currently in talks with coastal staff to basically pave over the paradise of our San Clemente State Beach. We are asking instead, first, stabilize the situation in the short term by allowing placement of only minimum rock along with adequate sand, then require a full coastal development permit, and 3, encourage a living shorelines project that mimics San Francisco's proposal for North Ocean Beach that utilizes a seawall buried beneath vegetated dunes with a requirement to maintain a wide sandy beach in front. Next slide, please. OCTA's current proposal is for a 50-foot wide rock revetment 2/3 of a mile long across almost all of San Clemente State Park, which represents 40% of our public beaches. They call it an engineered revetment, but it's basically just a pile of rocks. This would occupy all of the existing berm and destroy vegetated dunes with no restoration. OCTA believes that a one-time placement of an inadequate amount of sand will provide complete mitigation for the wholesale destruction of an extremely popular beach. Next slide, please. The top here illustrates OCTA's plan. Red equals the rock, yellow equals sand. Our proposal on the bottom is to instead install a 15-foot wide rock revetment, similar to what OCTA has been installing over the last 3 years, which appears to provide adequate stabilization, and place this rock only at the 500-foot long hotspot number 4, not the entire 3,500-foot length of the state park unnecessarily. Next slide, please. You didn't get a chance to be briefed on San Francisco's proposed project at North Ocean Beach. However, this is a graphic of what is proposed. We believe that a buried seawall covered with vegetated dunes with a requirement to maintain a wide sandy beach in front of those dunes would serve as an excellent model for OCTA's project. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our final 3 speakers are Naomi Nightingale, George Hilkema, and Anna Christensen. Naomi?
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. I'm speaking to you about the importance of protecting the history and culture of Venice, California, especially Oakwood, from mammoth residential buildings. My family has lived in Venice since 1952. I'm a person that was principal in the grant funding agreement with HUD, with the development and the building of low-income housing in Venice in the 1970s and 1980s, resulting in 15 low-income buildings, which in the most part have become market rate. It is damaging for the Coastal Commission to equate low and affordable housing with mass scale and out of character huge residential buildings, housing only 1 or 2 people with the provision of affordable housing. I implore you to use your power, influence, and duty to support the protected communities of the West Coast, and particularly the only one that is historically developed by African Americans who migrated here from southern states and built a community that is within a restricted covenant area that is now known as Oakwood, California. Low-income housing and affordable housing is important to our community, but out of scale and mass character does not satisfy that need or the desire for keeping with the history and culture of the Venice community. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. George Hilkema, and then Anna Christensen. George, you're on mute. There we go.
Good morning. My name is George Hilkema. I'm 88 years old and a resident of Newport for 50 years. I'm a boat and mooring permit holder for 34 years and a board member of the Newport Mooring Association for 30 years. The Newport Beach Harbor Commission has passed a program to raise monthly rates for mooring permits, which result in increases of 400 to 500%. This will soon go to the City Council for approval. I speak in opposition to this increase. Adam and Hein have already spoken to this issue, but let me just pose the question. Do some of the boats in Newport Harbor pay no tideland fee at all? Every boat in Newport Harbor uses the public tidelines in exactly the same way. On a sunny day, a boat casts a shadow on the bottom of the bay, which shows its approximate claim on the public tidelands. Whether it's secured to some cleats on a dock or secured to offshore to buoys on a mooring, there is no difference in its claim for private use of public tideland space. In the familiar slide that I show on the picture there, are illustrated a private dock compared to a boat or an offshore mooring. The text on the slide notes that for the same number of square feet of dock surface compared to the same number of square feet determined to be the footprint of a boat on a 40-foot mooring, the dock owner pays $30 per month, while the mooring permit holder will pay $480 per month if this program goes through. This is actually a dock to boat comparison. If you look again at the drawing, you'll see that there are 2 boats one on each side of the wooden dock. And a minimal fee is paid for the dock, but no tideland fee is paid for the house, for the boats. Alan and Adam have brought this up before. Given the non-discrimination requirement of the code under which the city of Newport Beach is granted administration of public tidelands, the reality is that some boats pay no fee at all for private use of public tidelands, shows the city is not in compliance with the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing Anna Christensen, but we actually do have Mandy Sackett in. So Billy, if you could bring up Mandy's presentation, that'll be our last speaker.
Hi, I'm Mandy Sackett with Surfrider Foundation. As you know, in 2021 and 2022, OCTA placed up to 24,000 tons of riprap on the beach in San Clemente. And now those boulders sit on public land and erode the beach near trestles. OCTA's follow-up permit application remains non-filed, and the public has no idea how permit discussions are going. In the few non-filed letters that were exchanged several years ago, OCTA indicated they did not believe they owed any mitigation. Those discussions may have progressed and OCTA may have come around, but we have no way of knowing because these communications are now happening behind closed doors. OCTA is now planning to expand this seawall another 2/3 of a mile north onto San Clemente State Beach, again, 50-foot wide revetment. The report states that they plan to apply for a permit exemption under routine repair and maintenance or another emergency permit and to complete the seawall by the end of this year. This situation is critical. The public's feeling really left out of a process that will have dramatic impacts to our beaches. Commissioners, we're asking you to please direct staff to provide a more detailed update about their meetings with OCTA and to the extent they can today, specifically to describe where the staff, commission staff is in negotiations and whether OCTA has indicated how and when they will apply for the seawall for this expansion work. Staff really needs to shed light on their communications with OCTA in person today and ideally in writing via a letter or like some type of follow-up report or memo. The public process has been, would be dramatically improved if staff could shed light on their latest communications with OCTA, both in person today and as a follow-up. So we really need a timeline of action. As of now, this seawall sits unmitigated on San Clemente's beaches, and we hope you as commissioners can help the public understand the process and how to plug in. Didn't get to my next slide.
Madam Chair.
Thanks very much, and thanks so much to the folks that took time out of their day to come and speak with us this morning. We really appreciate it, and I'm so glad that everyone was able to have a chance to speak this morning. We'll now turn to item 5, the administrative calendar. Are there any speakers?
No speakers.
Do any commissioners want to remove the item that's on the administrative calendar? All right, the administrative calendar is approved. Move on to the consent calendar, item 6. Do we have a presentation? Mr. Swain.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Yes, item 6 is the consent calendar for all districts on the agenda today. With the postponement announced earlier, there are 2 items from Orange County. Conditions are acceptable to the applicants. There's no known opposition, so we're recommending those matters be approved on consent.
Thank you. Does anyone have an ex parte on the commission? All right, are there any public speakers?
Just the applicants available for questions.
Okay, great. Then asking if anyone wants to remove an item that's on the consent calendar, and I entertain a motion.
I'll move the consent calendar. Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Is there any opposition to a consensus on this? All right, consent calendar is approved, and we'll move on to item 8, the enforcement report. Or unless I missed something.
Item 7, yeah, we need to cover the items to move.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From regular calendar to consent.
All right, do you have any presentation on item?
I do. So if I could for just a moment. So we have 4 items from Orange County that we're recommending be moved to consent. Again, those are items 10B, the City of Newport Beach's time extension. Items 11A, that's the Anita Street Stairs project from Laguna Beach. Item 11B, which is the Gray application from Laguna Beach. And item 11D, the UC Natural Reserve wetland restoration project. That's moved to consent. So there is correspondence and addendum on the Gray application that relate to exhibits that didn't upload correctly, and the addendum contains the corrected plan for the exhibits. And I do want to note, though, on items 11A and 11B, they did have a lot of prior public interest. For 11A, the City of Laguna Beach's Anita Street project, it's a bluff public access stairway and sewer pump station that was subject to an appeal that was focused on ensuring that ADA accessibility was being maximized with that project, and staff worked extensively with the city to look at various alternatives for providing wheelchair access down to the bluff and beach. This included a look at a series of ramps, as well as an elevator and funicular options. These various options were clearly not feasible at this location where the beach is narrow and often rocky. So staff turned to maximizing access to the proposed public viewpoint at the top of the stairs and worked with the city on adding a fully ADA compliant parking space in a portion of the right-of-way next to the Gray house at 1007 Gaviota. So we'd like to thank them for all their hard work to get this matter back before you today. On 11B, the Gray application, which is the bluff-top residence on the site adjacent to the Anita Stairs project, that application was last before the commission in Santa Cruz. The debate there focused mostly on the location of the bluff edge and the resultant setback for the home. At the time, the applicant disputed the bluff edge location identified by staff, but with some additional geologic field work undertaken by the applicant, we were able to resolve our differences over the location of the bluff edge. So we would like to thank Mr. Gray for his ongoing patience and willingness to work with us toward resolving the issues there. And I also want to thank the many commission staff that were invested significant amounts of time on that matter. So in both cases, commission staff did have full presentations for the commission, but in light of the fact that the applicants and the staff are in agreement on all aspects of the recommendations, and there's no opposition signed up that I'm aware of to speak on those matters, we're recommending these and the other matters identified be moved to consent and approved per the staff recommendations.
Thanks so much, Mr. Schwing. Is there public comment?
We have the applicant from UCI who wants to speak on 11D.
Okay.
Megan Lulo, and as a panelist.
Hello, and thank you. I selected that in case it would potentially be necessary to comment, but I don't have anything further to say. It was if a discussion came up.
Okay, thanks, Megan.
Through the chair, excuse me, I think we also have Mr. Gray who wanted to speak on 11B.
All right, Mr. Gray. Congratulations on getting this resolved. I was hopeful in Santa Cruz, and I just can't tell you how pleased I am to get to this point. I know you are too.
Well, I want you to know I didn't bring any notes, so this is from the heart. Thank you for suggesting that we get together and meet again, and thank you to the commission for that as well. I want to thank Jeffrey and I want to thank Carl for their work on this, but I'd like to highlight, Dr. Kate Huckelbridge, because we went up and met with her, and I have to tell you, her leadership at that meeting was phenomenal. Not only did she give clear direction, but she gave explanations of why it was important, and that kind of helped me cross the bridge of understanding. And all of a sudden, it became a very collaborative effort to get this resolved. So thank you very much. Thank you. She's a great leader. That's all I have to say.
Seriously, Mr. Gray, I just can't tell you, because it was a real struggle for the commission, and I'm just so pleased. And it's such a good result for the public, for you, for everyone. So I'm
well,
thrilled.
As you know, I've been to several of these meetings.
Yes.
And I listen to. All that you guys hear is negativity all day long. And that's why I drove 7 hours to get here. It's ironic. It was a 4-hour drive. It took 7 hours. But I would do it again and again to be able to take the opportunity to publicly thank the doctor and her team. So thank you, guys.
Well, I'd love to see a picture of your house when it's all done. It's going to be great. All right.
Mr.
Just a
Gray?
minute. Let me just close public comment before I return to the commission. All right. So do we have any other public comment? All right. I'm going to close public comment. And
Mr. Gray, if you could get in touch with your assemblyman or your state senator and reiterate that we're actually good and our staff is good, we would deeply appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
I do have one question on,
Your mic's not on.
I do have one question on C, on 11C. When someone takes out units, is there a mitigation to that? So now we don't have 5 units in the housing stock, we have 2. Do we have any ability to mitigate that in any other way? I know that there are municipalities where if you take out housing stock, you have to pay an in lieu fee. Do we have that ability at all?
Actually, on 11C, that is not before you today. That was actually postponed, but those are excellent comments and questions. We share the very same concern about the loss of units.
The agenda at the bottom.
Yeah, I see postponed. I was just talking more, seeing that, do we have, just in general, is that something this commission has the ability to do?
I'm sorry, I guess I missed the question.
I'll answer. I heard it. So yeah, I think we do. I think that's something that this is one of the reasons that we are paying close attention to this one. It was pulled off. We have similar concerns of the loss of density, loss of units, and we'll be working through that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions with regard to the consent calendar or comments? I know we're all thrilled on the gray matter, because I know that was something the entire commission was concerned about. All right, so I'll entertain a motion at this time to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, moved by Uranga, second by Commissioner Lowenberg. And is there any opposition to unanimous approval of the consent calendar? Seeing none, the consent calendar is approved. And now, I'm so sorry I skipped over that important item. We'll turn to the enforcement report. Let me just see if I can find my notes here. Here we are. All right. So we're now going to consider agenda items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4, including a proposed consent cease and desist order number CCC-24-CD-02, consent restoration order CCC-24-R0-02, and consent administrative penalty numbers CCC-24-AP-02 and CCC-24-AP3-02. The orders are all proposed to be issued to Esperanza Carmel Commercial LLC regarding the property located at 36700 Highway 1, Big Sur, Monterey County, with the alleged violator and/or its representative identify themselves for the record. Please, come on up.
Sure. Jared Ficker on behalf of Esperanza Carmel Commercial LLC.
Great, welcome. Staff, can you please identify what items are already part of the record?
Yes, good morning, Chair, members of the Commission. The record consists here of the contents of the staff report and supporting documents, the addendum, which consists of letters of support from Supervisor Mary Adams, which we passed out to you this morning since it came in too late for the addendum. The Surfrider and the Coastal Protection Network also submitted letters of support, as well as Ms. Penelia, along with the public documents in the violation file and today's hearing.
Thanks. Is it appropriate for me to read the letter into the record since the public didn't have a chance to see it, or is that?
You certainly are welcome to do so. We'll put it online eventually, but we didn't get it on yet.
Just in summary, this is a letter from Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Mary Adams, strongly in support of the resolution that we're going to be discussing today. All right, so I understand you need 30 minutes approximately for your presentation, Ms. Hagee?
Yes, please.
All right. So there should not have been, should I ask about ex partes at this time then, or should you present first?
No, please, go ahead.
Okay, so there should not have been any ex parte communications, but do any commissioners have any such ex parte?
We didn't have an ex parte, but I did want to make sure that it was clear that Commissioner Northup and I had a community meeting with with members of the community of Big Sur on Thursday, June 6th, and it was at that meeting, prior to the meeting beginning, Dan Carl was also a part of that meeting and made it abundantly clear to the community that we could not discuss the Rocky Point restaurant issue, and as a result, because of the fact that we would then need to recuse ourselves from being able to vote, and as a result, we did not discuss that item during that meeting. And so I just wanted to make it clear to folks that we had a meeting with the community, but this topic was not brought up because of the impacts it could have on us being able to vote on it during this session.
Thank you for doing that.
That's great, Commissioner Cummings, thank you. All right, I'll now review the rules for this proceeding. Staff has asked for 30 minutes for its presentation, so I'll give the alleged violator the same amount of time, and they may also request to reserve some of that time for their own rebuttal. After any presentation by the alleged violator, we will allow 3 minutes for any other party who would like to speak as an interested member of the public, after which the chair may allow the alleged violator to use any reserved rebuttal time to respond to comments from interested persons. I will then give staff an opportunity to respond to the testimony and to any new evidence introduced. Anyone who speaks at this hearing may propose questions, either orally or in writing, that they would like the commission to ask of any other party, but it is not appropriate to suggest questions to be asked to yourself. Commissioners may but are not required to ask the proposed questions. We'll now begin the public hearing with staff presentation.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Commission. Staff would now like to present agenda items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4, which share a single combined staff report. We are pleased to announce that the Esperanza Carmel Commercial LLC, hereinafter referred to as respondent, has worked with staff to reach an amicable resolution of this case by entering into the proposed consent cease and desist order, consent restoration order, and consent administrative penalties action, which will be collectively referred to as the consent orders, just for brevity's sake. This matter involves unpermitted development that blocked public access to the public road and scenic trails on public property and impacted extremely rare and native plants on properties overlooking the ocean in Big Sur and at and around Rocky Point Restaurant. As you will hear soon, the violations here were numerous, serious, and longstanding. These properties are incredibly scenic and are located in a part of Big Sur that's very popular with visitors, just a couple miles north of the Bixby Bridge. However, in this area, there's a severe lack of public access amenities, as you may know, and we sought to turn a truly unfortunate situation into the opportunity to create significant benefits to the public. As you will hear, staff worked together closely and collaboratively with respondent and greatly appreciates their cooperation and participation in crafting this resolution. We're now excited to detail a proposed agreement for your consideration that would provide excellent public amenities, could provide a very significant amount of mitigation to restore rare plants on the bluffs, and presents the opportunity to protect most of this expensive real estate for public access and habitat conservation in perpetuity. I'd like to note we greatly appreciate the close coordination and support from the county, as the chair noted earlier. Staff recommends that the commission issue the proposed consent orders to resolve the unpermitted development, and today's presentation will be given by Rob Monologue, sorry. He's sorry. An attorney in our headquarters enforcement staff, as well as commission ecologist Dr. Rachel Pausch, who will be joining us by Zoom, and Deputy General Counsel Alex Halpern is also available today. Rob?
Hey.
Monologue.
Thanks. Chris, you could start the presentation for 8.1 to 8.4. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Hart and members of the Commission. On this slide, you can see oceanfront bluffs that are owned by the County of Monterey and protected as open space. For over 6 decades, the public has used trails along these bluffs to enjoy the Big Sur scenery. This case involves violations relating to blocking public access to these bluffs, as well as impacts to the rare native plants that grow here, as we will cover in a moment. Next slide, please. The properties at issue are located between Carmel and Big Sur Village. You can see Rocky Point Restaurant, where the area of violations is, at the yellow star. The properties are less than 3 miles north of Bixby Bridge, a popular visitor destination. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see a California Coastal Records Project photo that shows the approximate boundaries of the properties. The parcel outlined in white is owned by respondent and contains Rocky Point Restaurant and its parking lot, which we will refer to as the Rocky Point property. As you can see, the Rocky Point property is surrounded on 3 sides by the parcel outlined in black. The parcel also contains the only road leading to the Rocky Point property. The parcel outlined in black is owned by the County of Monterey, and we will refer to it as the county property. Next slide, please. Oh, there, perfect. On this slide, you can see the approximate location of historic trails outlined in blue. Both the Rocky Point property and the county property have trails that have long been used by the public. For over 6 decades, the public has driven down the road you see here on the county property, parked in the parking lot on the Rocky Point property, and used the trails on both properties that are outlined in blue. It's very likely that the public therefore has prescriptive rights to use the parking lot and trails on the Rocky Point property. The public likely also obtained prescriptive rights to use the trails and road that are now on property owned by the public. Monterey County bought the county property in 1990. In 1994, the county recorded a deed restriction on the property to protect it for open space and habitat conservation, as well as to protect the existing uses. Those existing uses included public access, as we will discuss in more detail later. Next slide, please. Now we will briefly give an overview of the violations at issue in this case, which involve the former owner of the Rocky Point property's installation of an unpermitted lock gate and threatening signs that block public access to the road on the county property and by extension to the parking lot and trails. The red star shows where the unpermitted lock gate and signs restricting public access were installed, and you can see that how an unpermitted gate blocked the only access road when it was closed. In addition, the yellow star on the left shows where a large area was cleared on the county property for private employee parking and construction of sheds and a water tank. In the center, the yellow star shows where vegetation was cleared on the county property for use as a private, customer-only parking area. As you can see, major violations have occurred on property owned by the county, and so commission enforcement staff has coordinated closely with the county. Next slide, please. Now I will show you some overview photos of the properties. Here's a view of the coast from Highway 1, near the county road that leads to both the restaurant and the trails. It's hard to see in this image, but Rocky Creek Bridge is visible from the properties. And if you walk far enough out onto the bluffs, you can also see Bixby Bridge. Next slide, please. This photo shows a view as you drive down the county road towards the restaurant. Next slide, please. The parking lot on the Rocky Point property can be seen here. This is where the public parks to access both the restaurant and the trails. Next slide, please. This slide shows one of the trails on the county property. You can also see a lot of invasive ice plant. You will see invasive plants in many of the photos today, and they greatly harm the native habitat. We will discuss how respondent plans to address invasive species like ice plant soon. Next slide, please. In this photo, you can see a low rope fence on the left that demarcates the trail that crosses the Rocky Point property. The trails on the county property connect to the trail you see here, and respondent has agreed to improve them, as we will discuss later. Next slide, please. Now we're going to discuss the history of public access in this area. In this photo, you can see a map from 1898, and the location of the property is at the white star at the bottom. The northern stretch of Big Sur, where the properties are located, has been generally accessible to the public for a very long time. In 1870, Charles Bixby built a road from Carmel to the site of what is now Bixby Bridge, and it passed by the properties. Next slide, please. In this aerial photo from 1929, the white star shows where the properties at issue are, and the white arrow points to the coastal road next to it. In contrast, the rest of Big Sur was very isolated and sparsely populated until 1937, when Highway 1 was completed. Next slide, please. In the 1950s, Rocky Point Restaurant was opened, and on the right, you can see an old photo showing the view from inside. The public quickly began using the restaurant's parking lot to access trails and fishing areas on the bluffs. Next slide, please. In this aerial photo from 1972, the year that Proposition 20 first created the predecessor to the Coastal Commission, the white star shows where the restaurant is. The black arrow points to trails on both the county property and the Rocky Point property that were in existence over 50 years ago. The road and parking lot were used by the general public on a regular basis and consistently without having to pay a fee and without any other type of restriction or interference by the property owners. The location of these trails is largely unchanged today. Next slide, please. In this image, you can see someone fishing from the top of a rock on the county property. People do not only come for the sights, many come for the fish, as we will discuss later. I will now turn it over to Dr. Rachel Pausch on Zoom, who will discuss the ecology of the properties.
Thanks, Rob. Next slide, please.
Oh, 16. Oh.
Just getting worse.
There we go.
There we go. Thanks. On this slide, you can see part of an old menu from Rocky Point Restaurant that features a sea otter. Sea otters were overhunted in the 1800s and thought to be extinct in California. Then one tiny population was discovered near Bixby Bridge, just a few miles south, in the 1930s. As they slowly recovered and spread north and south, Rocky Point was one of the few places in California visitors could see the otters. Next slide, please. Today, Rocky Point's marine environment supports otters, as well as endangered species like abalone. The cliffs harbor a number of adapted plant and animal species, providing important habitat at the boundary of land and sea. Next slide. One example is the black swift, an incredibly rare bird in coastal California with an estimated 94% population decline since the 1970s. To stay safe from predators, black swifts use specialized nesting habitat on damp vertical cliffs near water, greatly limiting their habitat options along the coast. They are a species of special concern and considered imperiled within California. One of the few historical known occurrences of black swift in Big Sur was recorded at Rocky Point. Next slide. On this slide, you can see Rocky Point's bluff scrub vegetation. The properties provide environmentally sensitive habitat areas for native plant communities that are considered especially valuable. The wind, harsh soils, and salt spray on the bluffs result in unique dwarfed varieties of native plants. Their smaller, more compact size allows them to survive along the open coast. These plants are so unique to this area that today some species are sold in nurseries under the label of Rocky Point varietals. In addition, sea cliff buckwheat, which is the host plant for the federally endangered Smith's blue butterfly, occurs here, and thus the site has the potential to support yet another rare animal. Next slide. However, you may have noticed not all of the plants on the property are native. Pride of Madeira, an ice plant in particular, as you can see in the foreground, has proliferated on the Rocky Point property. In addition, lights like the one on the bottom of this photo were authorized via a local CDP and have been placed in various parts of the bluffs. Bright lights cause serious interruptions to the normal nighttime feeding or resting patterns of avian, terrestrial, and marine species, as well as increased vulnerability to predation. I'll now turn it back to Rob.
Thank you, Dr. Pausch. Next slide, please. Now we're going to discuss how and why the county property was protected. On this slide, you can see an argument in favor of Proposition 70, a bond initiative that was passed by the voters in 1988. This bond authorized millions of dollars to buy and preserve coastal land across the state, including in Big Sur. The bond initiative required that any land bought with Prop 70 funds be protected to preserve coastal views, open space, habitat, and the existing uses of the land. The text of Prop 70 included very strong prohibitions on development. Therefore, the County Board of Supervisors passed a resolution that stated that if they were to buy any land with money from Prop 70, the county would ensure that the land and coastal resources were protected as required. Next slide, please. In 1990, the county bought the land surrounding the Rocky Point property using Prop 70 funds. Accordingly, the county recorded a deed restriction that stated that the county desires to preserve the existing state of use of the property, and that, quote, the property shall remain as scenic open space in perpetuity and shall not be developed in any manner by any person or entity, public or private, unquote, except to maintain the existing uses. At the time of purchase, the public had been using the road and scenic trails on the county property for over 3 decades, and this deed restriction ensured that this public access use would be preserved as well, along with the habitat and open space. Next slide, please. Now we're going to discuss the violations at issue, including violations not just of the Coastal Act and the Monterey County Local Coastal Plan, but also of Prop 70 and the recorded deed restriction that we just discussed. On this slide, you can see an unpermitted locked gate. In 2012, the prior owners, Peter and Grace Wong, bought the Rocky Point property and began undertaking unpermitted development. In 2017, they installed the unpermitted gate that you see here without a CDP. Next slide, please. In this 2018 photo, you can see that the Wongs did not open the unpermitted gates on the county property until almost noon. The Wongs aligned their gates with the restaurant's limited hours of operation, which meant that the gates were mostly shut. Next slide, please. This second image from 2018 shows that the gates were also entirely closed 2 days out of the week. Next slide, please. Here you can see an unpermitted sign next to the gate that states, "Keep out." The Wongs posted this sign by 2017. Next slide, please. This image shows another unpermitted sign next to the gate that the Wongs had posted by 2016. This one threatens to tow the public and states that the area is, quote, "private property," unquote, even though this sign, like the others you just saw, is on public property owned by the county. Next slide, please. Now we will show the unpermitted clearance of native vegetation on the county property. In 2015, the Wongs cleared and graded this publicly owned and deed restriction protected area for use as a private parking lot for their customers. Next slide, please. Here's another shot of the unpermitted private parking area the Wongs created. Next slide, please. In this photo, you can see a larger area the Wongs cleared on the county property between 2013 and 2016 for use as unpermitted private employee parking. They also installed unpermitted sheds and water tanks that you can see behind the cars. Next slide, please. Now we will show the unpermitted development on the Rocky Point property. The Wongs installed many signs like the ones you see here in 2013 in an attempt to block public access to the parking lot. They did so even though there's evidence that the public had been using the parking lot for over 60 years and that the public had likely acquired prescriptive rights to the area. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see a 2020 photo of a guard who kicked a member of the public off the premises. The caption on the right simply stated that the guard was rude, but many reviews explain that while they used to regularly park on the Rocky Point property for free and with no interference, the guard was now blocking public access. Next slide, please. This photo shows the ground above an unpermitted septic leach field that the Wongs carved out of the bluff in 2013 and covered in grass by 2015. Next slide, please. I am now going to explain how these violations caused environmental injustice. In this photo, you can see a person fishing off the top of a large rock on the county property. These violations represented an environmental injustice because public access to trails and fishing areas is a low-cost activity, and the privatization of that access therefore disproportionately impacted people who could not afford to patronize the high-end Rocky Point restaurant. In addition, fishing is very important to many people in environmental justice communities. The people who fish here are very dedicated. You can see that this person climbed to the top of this very large rock to do so. Moreover, while the unpermitted gates were locked, people would still bushwhack through the coastal scrub to access the fishing spots. Next slide, please. This photo was taken on a recent site visit. In 2018, Commission enforcement staff received reports of the unpermitted gate and use of a guard. After investigating, Commission staff discovered the many other violations that you've seen. This case was elevated to the Commission's headquarters enforcement unit, and Commission staff began negotiating with the Wongs. Commission staff also coordinated closely with the county. However, in 2020, the pandemic hit, and progress was slowed. The Wongs permanently closed both the restaurant and the unpermitted gates, and Peter Wong passed away later that year. In 2021, Commission staff recorded a notice of violation on the Rocky Point property to ensure that any future owners would have notice of the violations. Commission staff also told both the Wongs and respondent, Esperanza Carmel Commercial LLC, who at that point was considering buying the property, that violations run with the land and that any future owners would have to assume full responsibility for the violations. In late 2021, respondent did buy the property. Respondent subsequently reopened the gates and worked with Commission staff to reach this proposed resolution. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see an unpermitted camera and threatening sign on the county property. The camera no longer works. We are now going to discuss the basis for the proposed issuance of the consent orders. The work undertaken constituted development under the Coastal Act and the LCP, but no coastal development permit was obtained. Thus, there's a basis to issue a cease and desist order here to bring respondent into compliance with the Coastal Act. Next slide, please. In this photo, you can see some of the unpermitted vegetation clearance. Here, the unpermitted development was undertaken without a CDP, no CDP could be obtained for it, and it continues to damage coastal resources. Therefore, there is a basis for a restoration order to restore the areas of unpermitted development. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the start of the main historic trail on the county property. You can also see a lot of invasive plants that respondent has agreed to remove and restore with natives. A person who is in violation of the public access provisions of the Coastal Act is subject to an administrative civil penalty under Section 30821 that may be imposed by the commission after a public hearing, like this one today. Next slide, please. Section 30820 of the Coastal Act provides for 5 factors in determining the amount of civil liability for administrative penalties, which we've covered extensively in the staff report and that I will summarize briefly here in the order you see on the slide. First, this was a substantial violation that blocked public access to popular trails for many years. Second, the violation can be remedied going forward, and while there are many years of access that cannot be recovered, access can definitely be enhanced going forward. Third, the resource was very sensitive because this is one of the relatively few public access points in this part of Big Sur. Fourth, while commission staff have spent a lot of time on this, much of that was spent attempting to negotiate with the Wongs, and respondent has worked amicably with commission staff. Fifth, the Wongs did undertake the violations for economic profit, and those violations do run with the land. However, many of the violations have not been actively maintained by respondent. To resolve these public access penalties, respondent has reached an agreement to protect public access here in perpetuity and to provide excellent amenities, which we will detail soon. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see one of the areas of unpermitted clearance of vegetation on the county property. The area has not been used by respondent and is beginning to fill with invasive plants, but respondent has agreed to remove the invasives and restore the area with natives. A person who is in violation of any provision of the Coastal Act other than those related to public access, such as the habitat, views, and other resource protection provisions of the Act, is also subject to an administrative civil penalty under Section 30821.3 that may be imposed by the Commission after a public hearing like this one today. Next slide, please. And now I will go through the 5 factors for the Section 30821.3 resource penalties, which are the same as the public access 30821 factors. First, the amount of habitat harmed by the violations was relatively smaller. Second, the violation can be remedied, and while there are many years of habitat losses that cannot be recovered, the areas of unpermitted grading can be restored to provide better habitat than existed before. Third, the habitat is very sensitive, includes rare native dwarf plants, and most of the area was protected by a deed restriction. Fourth, again, the Commission's spent a lot of time and staff resources on this matter, but most of that was attempting to work with the Wongs. And fifth, again, while the Wongs undertook this violations for economic profit, and they did run with the land, respondent did not actively maintain many of the items of unpermitted development. And to resolve these resource penalties, respondent has agreed to undertake a number of actions to improve habitat on the properties, and has also agreed to conserve most of the Rocky Point property forever, which we will detail in a moment. Next slide, please. Respondent has now agreed to a proposed resolution that greatly protects and enhances public access in the environment, and also provides over $4 million in value in the form of easements and public access amenities to be provided in lieu of monetary penalties. I will discuss the many actions that they have agreed to take in greater detail in the following slides. But first, here's an overview of the primary mitigation actions, which are separate from the penalty obligations that respondent has agreed to. In the green polygon at the top of the image, you can see the area of proposed invasive eucalyptus removal. The bottom green shape shows the area that respondent has agreed to restore along the entire bluff. For context, the 2 areas of unpermitted development that will be restored are in yellow and much smaller. Next slide, please. As part of their mitigation requirements, respondent has agreed to remove the invasive Australian eucalyptus trees that you see here, which also happen to block coastal views from Highway 1. Eucalyptus burns easily and is an extreme fire hazard. Firefighters have often used the restaurant's parking lot as a staging area during wildfires, and so it will be great to also make this road safer for them. Next slide, please. As you can see in these photos, the bluff on the Rocky Point property is full of invasive South African ice plant, which crowds out native plants and speeds up bluff erosion. It's very heavy. Ice plant is difficult to remove, but respondent has agreed to take it out and restore the habitat for the rare dwarf native plants. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see a photo of the bluff edge on the Rocky Point property. Respondent has agreed to resolve their resource penalties under Section 30821.3 by undertaking a number of actions. These include moving a permitted entrance sign in order to improve views from Highway 1 and removing permitted lights on the bluffs that shine on the ocean and adversely affect the ecosystem. These also include a plastic reduction plan to reduce waste from the business. And finally, respondent has agreed to record an offer to dedicate a conservation easement to protect the habitat and open space of these bluffs forever. We will now discuss some of these proposals in more detail. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the entrance sign for the restaurant in the center and a sign easement approximately outlined in yellow on the right. The sign was permitted by a local CDP, but it is located outside the sign easement specifically designated for it. As you can see, the sign currently impacts the critical viewshed area that is protected by the LCP, and respondent has agreed to move it into the sign easement where it will block views far less. Next slide, please. Although the bluff lights you see in this photo were permitted by a local CDP, respondent has agreed to remove them in order to improve the shoreline habitat. Next slide, please. This map shows the Rocky Point property outlined in white and the proposed conservation easement shaded in green. As you can see, respondent has agreed to protect virtually all of the privately held part of the bluffs in perpetuity. The adjacent bluffs on both sides of the Rocky Point property are already owned by the county and protected by a deed restriction. So this will ensure that the entire bluff area is permanently protected. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see one of the views from the Rocky Point property on the left. We are now going to cover the actions respondent has agreed to take to resolve the public access penalties under Section 30821. Respondent is required to submit a public access plan to commission staff for the executive director's approval. In addition, all of the work proposed for the county property must be authorized by the owner, which is the county. Once a plan is approved, respondent has agreed to record a deed restriction on the Rocky Point property to ensure that future owners are also required to provide and maintain the approved public access amenities. Respondent has also agreed to install a number of public access signs to consolidate and improve the trail system and to record public access easements on over 80% of the Rocky Point property. In addition, respondent has also agreed to provide a number of free public access amenities. These include 24 public parking spaces, 8 electric vehicle chargers, as well as a public viewing area with 5 benches and 10 tables. Finally, this would also include permanent public restrooms with 4 stalls, 2 of which would be ADA accessible. We estimate that the total value of the proposed resolution of both the resource penalties and the access penalties would be over $4 million, which mostly covers the cost of constructing restrooms and chargers in a remote area, as well as the monetary value of restricting development by recording easements over expensive real estate. Next slide, please. Here's a close-up photo of the restaurant entrance sign that will be moved farther away from the highway. There are currently 0 public access signs anywhere on the publicly owned county property or on the Rocky Point property. Respondent has agreed to install many new signs so that the public is aware of their rights and aware of the proposed new amenities. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the proposed public access easements shaded in blue. They overlap entirely with the conservation easement, but the public will be directed to stay on the historic trails. You can see that respondent has agreed to protect over 80% of the Rocky Point property for public access. Next slide, please. This aerial photo shows from California Coastal Records Project shows how over the years, the informal public access has led to a spider web of new trails and sensitive habitat. Respondent has agreed to close off most of these new trails with low symbolic fences, as well as signs encouraging people to stay on the main historic trails. Next slide, please. Here's a photo that shows one of the well-worn historic trails. Respondent has agreed to install minor improvements, such as wooden steps in some areas, in order to lessen the impact of erosion on surrounding habitat, which will also improve safety. Making the historic trails safer and more formal looking will also help to encourage the public to stay on them and not create new trails in the surrounding habitat, and thereby help protect the ESHA. Next slide, please. In addition, respondent has agreed to ensure that a minimum of 24 free public parking spaces are available. There are currently only approximately 50 parking spaces total on the Rocky Point property, so this is a big commitment by respondent to provide approximately half of the spaces to the public in perpetuity. Next slide, please. The photo on the left shows how some of the public parking spaces will have a scenic view. On the right, you can see a map of current public electrical vehicle chargers. The nearest public chargers are miles away in Carmel or Big Sur Village, and there are none in between. Respondent has agreed to provide 8 chargers for the public in this highly trafficked area that really needs more of them. Next slide, please. And on this slide, you can see a KQED news article photo showing a person picking up human waste on the side of Highway 1. Due to the severe shortage of public restrooms in Big Sur, many visitors have had to use the side of the highway as a restroom of last resort. This has been a particular problem for visitors to the very popular Bixby Bridge, which is less than 3 miles south of the properties. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see temporary public restrooms at Garrapatta State Park. State Parks recently installed these 2 restrooms in an effort to combat the shortage in Big Sur. However, there remains a high demand for more facilities. We are therefore very pleased that Respondent has agreed to provide and maintain permanent free public restrooms with 4 stalls, 2 of which will be ADA accessible. Next slide, please. In this photo from Google reviews of the restaurant, you can see the proposed public viewing area back when only patrons of the restaurant were allowed to use it. Respondent has now agreed to reserve this area for free public access only. Next slide, please. These photos show views from the proposed public viewing area. This amenity is important for environmental justice because the restaurants and resorts in this area are very expensive, and so many people cannot afford to simply relax and enjoy a meal with an ocean view in Big Sur. This viewing area would also allow people to bring food to the public tables and enjoy a unique coastal experience. Next slide, please. And now to conclude the presentation, we're going to give you a brief tour of the incredible scenic views that Respondent has agreed to permanently protect and provide public access to. This photo was taken on the county property looking east towards Highway 1. Next slide, please. Here's another photo of one of the views, this one looking southeast. Next slide, please. This slide shows the view to the south. Next slide, please. Now we're looking to the west at the photo from the first slide of the presentation. Next slide, please. This photo shows the view to the northwest. Next slide, please. Here you can see one of the trails in the foreground, and the white star shows where the restaurant is. This is looking north. Next slide, please. And this photo really shows how much of the county property is full of native coastal sage scrub. It was taken looking northeast. Next slide, please. The views are also very scenic from the historic trail on the Rocky Point property. This photo was taken looking south from that property. Next slide, please. And last but not least, you can see a view looking northwest from the Rocky Point property. Sea otters inhabit the kelp beds in this cove. I want to thank Respondent for their dedication to resolving this matter in a way that greatly enhances both public access and the environment in an area that desperately needs public access amenities and invasive plant removal. Most importantly, Respondent has agreed to finally protect this popular part of the coast for public access and habitat conservation in perpetuity. For over 6 decades, both the public and the environment have deserved better here, and we're excited to present to the Commission the opportunity to obtain extensive mitigation, excellent public access amenities, and easements to permanently protect this land. We recommend that the Commission approve the proposed consent cease and desist order, proposed consent restoration order, and proposed consent administrative penalties as set forth in the staff report. The 4 motions can be found beginning on page 12 of the staff report. That concludes my presentation. And I'll turn it back to Lisa.
I did just want to add one quick thing, which is that in the addendum that was posted on our website and is available to the public, although we think that the deal that Rob outlined was pretty amazing, but they did add to the agreement to put in 2 water bottle refill stations and trash cans that will be maintained by them. And we think it's part of the plastics reduction program, but it hadn't been spelled out before, and they added that commitment to their to the settlement. And we'd like to thank them for that.
Wow, that's such a great report. So inspiring. Thank you so much, Rob and Lisa, for that. You know what I'd like to do before we move to the respondent, to the response by the respondent, is take about a 5-minute bio break for everybody. And so why don't we just try to get back here as quick as possible. by 10:55. Thanks. All right, folks, we're going to return to this item, and now we're going to hear from the respondent's representative. Please, if you could restate your name. Is it Bicker? Ficker, with an F. Ficker. Thank you.
With Axiom Advisors on behalf of Esperanza Carmel Commercial LLC. So Chair Hart and members of the commission, it's a pleasure to be here. And it's also a pleasure to see the little bit of morphine from alleged violator last time I stood up here to respond.
I know, I just couldn't call you that. I just couldn't.
I understand. I understand. You know, as was presented by Rob and as background to this, our client purchased the property with full knowledge of some of the pretty extensive and for decades long violations on this site. So we were eyes wide open about this. And I must say, I do want to thank the staff, Rob, Justin, Lisa, a whole bevy of legal interns that also worked on this, including, you know, some of the ecological staff. We did site visits. We looked at this really extensively, and I can only say that, you know, the enforcement team really handled this professionally. They listened to what we had to say. They offered constructive feedback, and it worked really well.
One sec, we've got an issue.
I can
Yeah,
repeat
could you
them.
repeat that about the staff?
Just give us a few moments. They lost connection, so we're not currently streaming, and we need to be. So we need to get the stream back up before we continue.
Still trying to get it. Chair Hart, I'm happy to just repeat when you do it, because I'd certainly love it on the record.
Sure, do you want to just?
Yeah.
Sure, just start a minute before where you.
Yeah, we'll do.
Please.
So again, just for the record, Jared Ficker with Axiom Advisors on behalf of the respondent, Esperanza Carmel Commercial. Again, we enjoy being the respondent, not the alleged violator. Our client, is it still? Okay. I'll try.
I think you can just start with the staff compliments next time.
Check, check. Check, check. All right.
All right, we're back in. I was just kidding. Why don't you just move forward with your response to?
Okay. Again, Chair Hart and members of the commission, pleasure to be here. Jared Ficker with Axiom Advisors on behalf of Esperanza Carmel Commercial. The respondent on this, again, we appreciate the recognition. Our client purchased this property with full knowledge of the violations that existed on it. We've worked diligently with staff As I was mentioned before the technical difficulties, it's been a pleasure to work with Rob, Lisa, Justin, and a whole bevy of legal interns that all participated in this, including some of the ecological staff. We made site visits to the property. I know most of the proceedings here deal with planning staff and others, but your enforcement staff did a great job. They were responsive, listened to some of the suggestions that we had, gave constructive feedback, and it took us a while to work through this agreement, but I think we have something that is absolutely spectacular for the coast of California, and we're proud of it. As you all know, this is a unique property with extensive public amenities as part of this agreement. It's uniquely located in a place, and I was talking to a member of the public earlier, in the Big Sur coast that is really only 20 minutes from Carmel, but right at that sort of gateway to the scenic vistas that Big Sur is so known for. So having these additional public amenities there and a place where folks that maybe have shorter trips that they take up and down the coast, they can come there, and I think it's going to take extensive pressure off Big Sur proper in terms of going and continuing down the coast, because as we all know, there's a lot of folks that want to come down, maybe go to Bixby Bridge and then turn around, and there really aren't the amenities there to accommodate that kind of traffic and congestion that we see, and so we're happy to be contributing to, I think, a much-needed solution for this stretch of coast. So I don't have a lot to say other than that. I'll make just a few more comments. Rob, I think, extensively covered the agreement. We're happy to answer any questions around that, but please come visit this place. It's one of the most unrivaled vistas in the Big Sur coast, and it's close, and you can come down there and have a great experience. Again, I want to thank all those involved. It's been a pleasure to work with the enforcement staff, and we look forward to implementing this agreement. We've got a lot of work in front of us, so thank you for your time. Any questions, I'll reserve some time for that, but thank you for your time, Chair Hart.
Thanks, Mr. Ficker. I'm sure that commissioners will have some remarks, and we'll get back to that after public comment. So I'd like to now open public comment on this matter and ask how many speakers there are available.
I have 3 on the list, but I'm only seeing 1, so I'm just going to call all of them and see if anybody raises their hand.
Sounds good.
Ryan Aishleman, if you're in the Zoom, please raise your hand. You can do so by dialing *9. Penny Aaliyah, same. And Laura Walsh is here, I believe, in the room.
All right, why don't we have Laura come up then, please? You have 3 minutes.
Hi, good morning. Laura Walsh with Surfrider Foundation and California Coastal Protection Network. This is an awesome outcome for the public in an iconic part of the coast. This package is also appropriate given the severity of the violations, especially from the previous landowner. But what's so cool about the package is it makes really clear that public access here is supposed to remain for the public in perpetuity. And also it improves upon the existing conditions and starts to address some of the actual past violations, improving the native vegetation and keeping things open for everyone. So just thank you for everyone for working together and look forward to visiting.
Thanks so much. Laura, right?
Yeah, Penny and Ryan Aishleman. I believe Ryan is also representing the violator from what I understand, but I'm not.
I believe Ryan is just available for questions.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, regardless, I don't see him, so that's it.
That's it. All right, great. Well, thank you very much. I'm assuming neither of you need rebuttal since there's been no. All right, so in that case, I'd like to bring it back to the commission, close the public hearing, and I know that several of our commissioners would like to speak, starting with Vice Chair Escalante.
Very briefly, what a beautiful thing. I can't wait to be there and to check it out. Thank you to the respondent. Thank you to staff, of course, as always. Remarkable work. Congratulations.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Anyone else? Mm-hmm. Commissioner Eckel.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Escalante. This is really incredible. The shoreline, the coastline here is just breathtaking, and I think this is an incredible example of the importance of this commission. Without the diligence and the work of our team, this area of the coastline might continue to be inaccessible to the public. So thank you so much, and I cannot wait to visit.
Commissioner Turnbull-Sanders.
Thank you. Echoing the sentiments of my fellow commissioners, great job, staff, on this. One question I had was on that leach field that was cleared and created. What's going on with that?
they're required to remove it. We expect that they may need to replace it with something else on a different part of the property. There's other places they could put it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? I have a question with regard, Commissioner Cummings, excuse me.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I guess, I mean, this is a great outcome. I share the sentiment. I kind of feel bad for the folks who purchased the property and have to put all these investments in because they're not the violators. And so I guess that's one question I had. Under these kinds of circumstances, are there any way, and I know that one of the violators is deceased, but I mean, in terms of any who are still living, is there any way to get some kind of financial compensation out of those individuals? Because this is definitely going to, cost a lot of money.
I'll take a crack at that. We realize that the prior owner is responsible. It's difficult for us, and violations do run with the land. It is true that some of the violations have remained in place under the current owner, even while we were having discussions, although the orders will have those be, at least the gate is going to be opened now permanently, immediately. So there's some immediate benefits. But we really needed to deal with the current owner because of the kind of creative settlement we wanted to do here. There's no way that we could have had a deal with a prior owner that would have conferred any of these types of benefits. These are on-site benefits and on-site amenities, and the most we could have gotten from a prior owner would be cash, and that wouldn't have had the same benefits. I wanted to say one thing that we like about this settlement is that they were willing to do things that we don't have the legal authority to order them unilaterally to do. We could not have done this without their cooperation. We could have probably gotten a lot of money from them, but it wouldn't have been the same benefit to the public. And so we thought that this was a fair resolution. And generally speaking, when property, we weren't party to this transaction, but when violations are identified in advance, and that's one reason why we try to do that, violations and the costs of remediating those and addressing those can be folded into the purchase price discussions. So since the current owner was very well aware of the violations when he purchased it, he certainly had the opportunity to make that reflected in the purchase price.
Got it. That makes sense. And then, so I guess I have some other questions related to future development. I'm just kind of wondering, for the record, like if there's any attempt to kind of make improvements or develop the facility any further, like what would that mean in terms of like permitting and what they need to do as relates to the Coastal Act?
Respondent is required to undertake the actions required by the consent orders, no matter what, whether they apply for a development to build something or whether they just reopen the restaurant. And so we tried to write this in a way such that they could apply for something and apply for a permit to do something different, or they could do nothing and it wouldn't affect this agreement.
Great. And then I guess I have one question for the current owners. I guess when are we expecting it to be open?
It's an excellent question, Chair, or Commissioner Cummings. We currently don't have a plan. As was mentioned by Rob, we have to apply for permits, and there's a lot of work ahead of us. So that process is a very time-consuming process. So I can tell you we've done a lot of work already on this and anticipate applying with Monterey County and coordinating with the Coastal Commission planning staff on that as we go forward. But I wish I could have a more accurate estimate, but we're just embarking on that process.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you all again for your collaboration and for y'all's cooperation, and just let us know when you guys plan on opening so we can come down and support your business.
Yeah, we'll do. But in the meantime, please, it's open for the public. Come down, park there, walk around on the trails. It's really quite majestic. So thank you.
Commissioner Newsom.
Just a follow-up question to that. Is the gate, is it removed or is it always perpetually open?
Yeah, the gate will be removed as part of these orders.
Okay.
And we've, since our group has owned it, we've worked really extensively to try and keep it open as much as possible. We're only really closing it in the evenings, but now it's going to be removed. There have been, with the building closed as part of COVID and everything, the restaurant there, we've had a lot of vandalism and other things. So the only closure there has been really to kind of protect the resources and not only the ecological amenities, but also some of the fixed assets. There's been a lot of problems there.
Okay, I commend you on this fabulous package for the public. Thank you to staff, thank you to you for this. Also just want to caution, in some of the research I did on Instagram of how the property was used previously, that cutout of the cliffs for the knoll plateau, if you will, has been used for special events and Bible studies, weddings, etc. And I just caution you as the applicant of when you're moving forward and you hopefully reopen very soon, that when you have those special events, to not put up special event parking signs that would preclude
Yes,
the
we're
public
very aware.
from participating. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I have a couple questions for staff. With regard to the conservation easement offer to dedicate, what's the game plan with that actually being accepted, and by who and when?
We don't know, we don't have anyone lined up to accept it, but there's a fairly lengthy queue for recorded documents we have a recorded documents legal staff unit. And so it'll be a couple years at least until this gets through the queue, so we have some time to try and find someone to accept it.
Is it in perpetuity, the offer, just for this owner? Tell me about that, because we don't want to lose that.
You want to answer that question?
Thanks, Mr. Halpern.
Yeah, so the way that the offers are structured now in our legal unit is that the restrictions on the use of them apply immediately and in perpetuity. The offer only lasts for 21 years, but that's plenty of time to find someone to accept it. And again, in the interim, it's already being treated in the way that we designed it to be treated in perpetuity.
I just know the offers to dedicate that I'm familiar with, you know, if you don't find anyone to accept the offer, and sometimes that's challenging with coastal access offers, you know, it requires money. So what I'm asking is if you could return to the commission with an update on that particular topic, once you determine who will be holding the conservation easement. I think that would be great to just circle back on that. Likewise, on the access easement, can you describe how that's going to work?
Yeah, it's a similar kind of process. It's going to be open for public access even before someone accepts the easement. And also, it's worth noting that the Coastal Conservancy is required at the end of the 21 years, if we haven't found someone to accept it, yeah. So we have a rigorous program, too, to make sure that all of the offers that we have outstanding do get picked up before they expire. So.
Yeah, it seems like the county would be the logical, since they own the land. I'm a little surprised that, but it sounds like it's going to be worked out in any event, so we don't need to dwell on that here. Okay, well, I just want to say from my perspective, I want to thank your client, Mr. Ficker, for this just visionary plan to provide the public access to an area they really deserve and have a right to have access to, but have been prohibited. And from the Coastal Commission perspective, for me, that's one of the most important things that we do. And the Big Sur Coast is the most probably, except for Morro Bay. I'm no dummy. No, you know, it's just iconic, the views in that area and the Bixby Bridge, and particularly with everything that's been going on down there. I'm assuming this is before the recent slide. So it's just such a fantastic outcome. And I just can't thank you enough, our staff. I mean, I remember reading about this when it first was in the newspaper, and so many people sent it to me just congratulating the commission. Of course, we didn't do any of the work. It was all done by our incredible staff, and I'm just so grateful for the work on this. So thank you very much. All right, so I'd now like to ask for a motion. I don't know what's happening, Billy.
We are still critical on bandwidth. If you're using it in this room, your cell phone or laptop, please go to airplane mode, because otherwise we're going down the bandwidth.
I'm not sure what's up. Yeah, folks, you can, yeah, just get off the internet. We've been having this problem for the last 2 days and now again today, and we have to keep having to postpone items and put a pause on the meeting. So please just go into airplane mode if you possibly can. All right, so I'd now turn to Commissioner Cummings. You'd like to make the motions on page 12 and 13. There's going to be 4 motions.
Sure. First one, I move that the commission issue consent cease and desist order number CCC-24-CD-02 to Esperanza Carmel Commercial LLC pursuant to the staff recommendation and I recommend a yes vote.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. I think just given the gravity and the importance of this particular item, I'd like to take a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Cummings.
Aye.
Cummings, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Lowenberg.
Yes.
Lowenberg, yes. Commissioner Newsom.
Yes.
Newsom, yes. Commissioner Rice.
Yes.
Rice, yes. Commissioner Turnbull Sanders.
Yes.
Turnbull Sanders, yes. Commissioner Uranga.
Aye.
Uranga, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Yes. Chair Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. The vote is unanimous.
All right, next motion.
I move that the commission issue consent restoration order number CCC-24-RO-02 to Esperanza Carmel Commercial LLC pursuant to the staff recommendation, and I recommend a yes vote.
Second.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Lowenberg.
Yes.
Lowenberg, yes. Commissioner Newsom.
Yes.
Newsom, yes. Commissioner Rice.
Yes.
Rice, yes. Commissioner Turnbull Sanders.
Yes.
Turnbull Sanders, yes. Commissioner Uranga.
Aye.
Uranga, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Wilson, yes. Commissioner Cummings.
Aye.
Cummings, yes. Chair Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. The vote is unanimous.
All right, moving on. I move that the commission find that the various actions and failures to act described in the associated findings are in violation of the public access provisions of the Coastal Act, and that the commission impose an administrative civil penalty pursuant to the staff recommendation, and I recommend a yes vote.
Second.
Commissioner Lowenberg.
Yes.
Lowenberg, yes. Commissioner Newsom.
Yes.
Newsom, yes. Commissioner Rice.
Yes.
Rice, yes. Commissioner Turnbull Sanders.
Yes.
Turnbull Sanders, yes. Commissioner Uranga.
Aye.
Uranga, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
Yep.
Wilson, yes. Commissioner Cummings.
Aye.
Cummings, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Chair Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. The vote is unanimous.
All right, lastly, I move that the commission find that the various actions and failures to act described in the associated findings are in violation of various provisions of the Coastal Act, including but not necessarily limited to provisions protecting environmentally sensitive habitat areas, and that the commission impose an administrative civil penalty pursuant to the staff recommendation, and I recommend a yes vote.
Second.
Commissioner Newsom.
Yes.
Newsom, yes. Commissioner Rice.
Yes.
Rice, yes. Commissioner Turnbull Sanders.
Yes.
Turnbull Sanders, yes. Commissioner Uranga.
Aye.
Uranga, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Wilson, yes. Commissioner Cummings.
Aye.
Cummings, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Lowenberg.
Yes.
Lowenberg, yes. Chair Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes.
All right, congratulations, and please thank your client again, and I know we're all so excited to visit that just amazing property now and once the restaurant is open, so thanks again so much. All right, we're now going to move on to the Deputy Director's report for the South Coast District, after we shift everybody around.
Yeah, that was nice having you there. It was awesome.
All right, we have commissioners that have flights and stuff, I'm learning, so we'll move things along.
Thank you for your patience as we get ourselves situated here. Yep. I think Carl's just about ready.
Okey doke, great.
Thank you. So that does take us to item 9, which is the Deputy Director's Report for South Coast District, Orange County. The report contains 3 extensions, 1 amendment, 8 waivers for projects in Laguna Beach, San Clemente, Seal Beach, and Dana Point. There's no known opposition on those items. I did want to note support for one of the waivers that's for sand placement at San Clemente's North Beach. We did receive a number of letters on that particular project, one from California Senator Catherine Lakespear, California Assembly Member Lori Davies, 5th District Orange County Supervisor Katrina Foley, and Mayor Victor Cabral with the City of San Clemente. That project's a cooperative endeavor led by the city that takes advantage of an opportunity to transport up to 50,000 cubic yards of sand from an inland location along the Santa Ana River to North Beach, where it will help protect a section of the railroad, a train station, and a public parking lot and restrooms that are used for coastal access. And it'll also, of course, widen the beach and enhance coastal access that way. Let's see, the letters received suggest that the proposed project, which is a voluntary effort, could be used toward mitigation for OCTA's pending request to authorize work to protect the railroad in the vicinity of Cypress Shores. And based on conversations we had with OCTA staff this week, this idea does remain very conceptual at this point, but both Commission staff and OCTA expressed general support for the idea, although many details remain to be worked out. So we'll continue to work on that, as well as other ideas to address the coastal access issues there along the rail corridor. So with that, we're asking whether 3 or more commissioners object to any of the waivers in the Deputy Director's report.
All right, thanks, Mr. Schwing. Are there any speakers?
I know we have 4 available for questions.
Great. All right, do 3 or more commissioners object to any item on the Deputy Director's report? Seeing none, the commission concurs, and we will move on to the next item.
Great, thank you. That does take us to item 10A, and this is the City of Dana Point's LCP amendment on the Dana Point Harbor Hotels. And Shahar Amate with our Long Beach office is going to make that presentation.
Great. Hi, Mr. Amate.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. This is item 10A, a project-specific LCP amendment by the City of Dana Point that would allow for the replacement of an existing hotel, the Marina Inn, with a new lower-cost hotel, and the construction of a new market-rate hotel in Planning Area 3 of Dana Point Harbor, shown on the slide. In addition, the city is requesting reconfiguration of the boater service buildings and parking areas within this planning area. Next slide, please. Planning Area 3 is an area of Dana Point Harbor which comprises approximately 9.5 acres of public tidelands with a land use designation of visitors serving commercial and zone Dana Point Harbor planned community. As shown on this slide, it is bordered by Dana Point Harbor Drive to the north, the pedestrian promenade and marina to the south, Casitas Place to the east, and Island Way to the west. Next slide, please. Planning Area 3 currently houses the Marina Inn, which was built in the 1970s as a weekly vacation destination for Orange County residents. The Marina Inn presently provides lower cost to moderate cost overnight accommodations consisting of a total of 136 guest rooms and limited guest amenities that include an outdoor pool, 3 meeting rooms, and a small lobby. The existing Marina Inn constitutes the vast majority of lower cost standard hotel rooms in the City of Dana Point's coastal zone. Given its location on public tidelands near the waterfront in Dana Point Harbor, the Marina Inn, to this day, provides valuable lower cost and moderate cost overnight accommodations. However, a question is raised as to whether the Marina Inn is currently offering rooms at lower cost rates. The staff reports for the certification of the LCP indicate that the overnight room rates of the Marina Inn were about $89 per night in 2010, and that, quote, low cost was loosely considered to be less than $100 per night at the time, unquote. Adjusting to 2024 dollars, the rate should be about $128 per night. However, the nightly rates of the Marina Inn have far outpaced inflation, with the most recent rates averaging approximately $186 per night, as shown on this slide. Next slide, please. The facilities at the Marina Inn are quite outdated. Thus, existing LCP language contemplates the future replacement of the existing Marina Inn with a new facility with a maximum of 220 guest rooms with full-service guest amenities. Existing LUP policy 5.2.1-2 states that if the Marina Inn were to be demolished, all units must be replaced with, quote, units that are of equal or lower cost than the existing lower cost units to be demolished, unquote. An LCP amendment is required if a future plan deviates from these existing requirements. This LCP policy was certified with the understanding that the Marina Inn is a lower cost hotel facility, but as mentioned, that may not be the case today. Next slide, please. As submitted, the City of Dana Point is requesting changes to the LCP that would, 1, allow for 2 hotels, a 136-room replacement lower cost hotel called the Surf Lodge, and a 130-room market rate hotel called the Dana House Hotel. 2, specify that the new hotels would provide additional guest amenities, such as swimming pools, fitness centers, restaurants. 3, require that some unspecified number of lower cost rooms be provided because of the construction of a new market rate hotel facility. And 4, reduce the square footage of existing boater service facilities and allow their incorporation into the proposed hotel development. Next slide, please. There are a number of issues with the city's LCP amendment as submitted, which mainly concern whether the proposed hotel development would be adequately replacing and providing lower cost overnight accommodations. 1, first, we needed to bridge the gap between the proposed moderate cost rates at the replacement hotel with the goal of providing lower cost accommodations in the harbor. Second, we needed to adequately offset the proposed new high-cost hotel rooms with lower-cost facilities consistent with Coastal Act Section 30213. The preferred approach would be by requiring that 25% of new market rate rooms be provided at lower cost and on-site if feasible. The city's proposed language is unclear regarding how many total new lower-cost rooms should be included and at what rates. And lastly, we needed to consider whether the lower cost facility would allow for dormitory or hostel style accommodations, or more preferably, conventional double occupancy rooms. Next slide, please. With regard to the first issue, the submitted LCP amendment would allow for the 136 replacement hotel rooms to be provided at the same rates as those at the existing Marina Inn, which are about $186 per night. Using the Commission's typical approach, including an adjustment for the proposed room occupancies, the average daily rate would need to be closer to $170 per night to be considered lower cost. So staff reviewed the developer's economic analyses for this in many different scenarios, which show that providing the 136 replacement hotel rooms at the approximately $170 per night rate would unfortunately be financially infeasible. Thus, staff recommends the Commission allow the replacement hotel rooms to be priced at the existing Marina Inn rates, as is allowed per the existing LCP language, but with a supplemental program that would offset those higher room rates, which we will discuss next. The city and developer are agreeable to this suggested modification. Staff believes that the gap between what the Commission would typically consider as lower cost, or about $170 per night, and what the developer actually wants to charge, which is $186 per night plus CPI for inflation, which we call the rate differential, that should be offset somehow. This is because the proposed hotels would be on public islands, and because the original intent of the certified LCP was to ensure the provision of truly lower cost overnight accommodations at the site. Through calculations that are laid out in detail in the staff report and implemented through a formula that is reflected in the proposed modifications, staff was able to translate the rate differential of about $15 per night into a dollar figure of about $3.8 million over the 60-year life of the project lease. Staff is happy to go over the formula in greater detail if the Commission has any questions. This figure would need to be updated at the time the city reviews a CDP application for the proposal. This offset should then specifically go to lower cost overnight programming in the harbor. Again, all of this relates to the replacement hotel rooms in the Surf Lodge. As recommended by staff, the new plan also includes new lower cost rooms provided on site, which are to be offered at truly lower cost rates. Next slide, please. Since the LCP amendment would allow for 130 new market rate rooms, then 25% or 33 lower cost rooms should be provided on site if feasible. In our negotiations with the city, county, and developer, Commission staff recommended looking at a project alternative where those 33 new rooms would be placed in the Surf Lodge along with the 136 replacement rooms for a total of 169 rooms. After reviewing the developer's various proposals and feasibility analyses, staff found that this particular scenario would be feasible, and the city, county, developer agreed. As such, 33 rooms would be provided on site, and the plans are shown on this slide. As such, staff recommends taking out references to hostel style or dormitory rooms. Further, the city, county, developer have agreed to keeping the rates of these 33 new rooms at the 75% of statewide ADR, adjusted for occupancy and inflation, which most recently was about $170 per night. So in combination with the other elements, this plan would offer a range of affordability at various price points on site and within the harbor. Next slide, please. So in summary, the staff recommendation is to 1, allow the 136 replacement hotel rooms to be equal to or less than the 2022 annualized Marina Inn rates plus CPI to account for inflation. 2, require the 33 new hotel rooms to be equal to 75% of the peak season statewide ADR and adjusted for occupancy, which will be recalculated each year. And 3, if the 136 replacement hotel rooms have rates between the Marina Inn rates and the statewide derived lower cost threshold, then the developer will need to offset these more moderate cost rates by providing programming toward lower cost overnight access. Next slide, please. In terms of hotel amenities, staff worked with the city, county, developer to come up with suggested modifications that clarify the amenities of the proposed hotel development. Next slide, please. All parties have also agreed to modify the LCP amendment to include additional public access improvements. These include public beverage, food, and retail service, common seating on roof decks or terraces of the hotels, a small viewing platform on Island Way with benches, educational and directional signage, landscaping improvements, and lighting and connectivity with a pedestrian promenade. These amenities could provide great benefits to the members of the public while opening up new view sheds and complementing protected viewpoints. Next slide, please. While the proposed plan provides for an encouraged visitor-serving use, the new hotels would have the effect of privatizing certain areas of public tidelands that are currently open and available to the general public. Thus, the hotel developer should be required to address this loss of available tidelands by providing additional public benefits. The city, county, and developer have done so by putting together a community benefits package which would be geared towards improving public access and recreational opportunities at the harbor. This benefits package would also promote the Commission's environmental justice policy within the Dana Point Harbor. As discussed earlier, staff also recommends that the Commission require a rate differential offset for the 136 replacement hotel rooms that are offered at moderate cost rates, and that offset should be specifically contributing to lower cost overnight programming. As such, the developer has agreed to pay a total of $110,000 per year for the life of the proposed development. This amount would be divided into public access and recreational programming, shown as the left bucket, and the lower cost overnight programming, shown as the right bucket. As discussed earlier, the rate differential offset is currently estimated at $3.8 million, which over the anticipated 6-year lease period of the hotel will be approximately $62,800 per year. The remainder of that $110,000 per year would go into the public access and recreational bucket, which would be approximately $47,200 per year for the life of the hotel. Of course, the city would need to recalculate these numbers when the CDP is issued. The idea is that this total community benefits package addresses both issues of public access and recreation, as well as lower cost overnight opportunities in the harbor. Next slide, please. With regards to boater service facilities and parking, the Coastal Act discourages reduction of recreational boating harbor space unless demand no longer exists or substitute space is provided. The proposed plan would demolish 2 boater service buildings and incorporate those uses into the market rate hotel structure. The facilities would still provide boater restrooms, showers, and laundry facilities, including clothes washers and dryers, and marina office space, but in an area reduced by approximately 1,400 square feet and with fewer amenities. The reduction in amenities or capacity would not be consistent with Coastal Act Section 30234 unless boater demand is also reduced. With staff's recommended modifications, the developer must still provide facilities with the equivalent quantity and quality of services unless there is actual observed reduced boater demand. In terms of parking, Planning Area 3 currently has a total parking capacity of 623 vehicles, including a 178 space portion of the parking area located immediately adjacent to the East Marina that is dedicated boater parking. The new hotel development would still provide 178 boater parking spaces, but they would be located within the new parking structures, and a small portion may be moved to a neighboring planning area, numbers 2 or 5, close to the water to ensure that all parking spaces are provided and at a convenient location. Next slide, please. Since posting of the staff report, Commission has received correspondence, mainly from boaters, in objection to the LCP amendment and staff recommendation, and an addendum has been produced in response. A majority of the objectors' points were already discussed and analyzed in the staff report, such as the decrease in the square footage of the boater service facilities and the reconfiguration of the boater parking. In addition, many of the boaters are concerned with the fact that developer, Dana Point Harbor Partners, may not be compliant with the slip layout approved by the Commission per the 2019 Harbor Revitalization CDP, and the day-use boater parking approved by the city per the 2013 Commercial Core CDP, both of which are currently under construction. Staff notes that the Commission's enforcement unit is looking into these allegations, but that these present matters in other planning areas are in other planning areas of the harbor and do not pertain to the LCP amendment that is before you today. Next slide, please. As submitted, the city's amendment to the LUP and IP do not conform with and are not adequate to carry out the Chapter 3 policies of the Coastal Act and the policies of the city's certified LUP. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission deny the amendment as submitted and certify the amendment only if modified. The motions and resolutions are on pages 10 through 12 of the staff report, and this concludes Commission staff's presentation, and staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emete, for that excellent report. I'm now going to open the public hearing and ask how many speakers there are.
Yes, we have 10 signed up to speak. I'm able to find 9.
Okay, and do we have the local government?
Yes,
Here?
we have Brenda Wisniewski, the city of Dana Point, and we have OC Supervisor Katrina Foley.
All right. Is it Ms. Oznicki? Was that correct?
Brenda Wisniewski.
Wisniewski. Not even remotely close. How much time would you need to talk about this?
Very brief.
That would be awesome.
2 minutes at the most.
Okay, terrific. Please go ahead.
Good evening, or good day, I'm sorry. Chair Hart, it is late. Brenda Wisniewski, Community Development Director for the City of Dana Point, and the city has acceptance of the suggested modifications, subject to our City Council approval, of course, but we have been working hard with Coastal Commission staff over the past 4 years on this effort, and we feel that the suggested modifications are reflective of the vision of the harbor that, as mentioned, is currently under revitalization. The formula that's been presented is complicated, yet we understand the developer feels optimistically that it will work and that hopefully we'll finally get a new hotel in Dana Point. We have actually 4 different hotels in the city that are at different stages of the application process, 2 of which have been entitled. One is a 100-unit room hotel that 25% are affordable, but unfortunately that has not been developed because it just simply can't pencil. The other is a hotel that has hostel units, and currently the developer is value engineering that project so they can actually try to get it built. So my point is that we hear today from the developer that they feel, as I said, cautiously optimistic that they can get this built. So I think the formula that that Mr. Amate has developed is complicated, but hopefully that will get something moved forward. So that being said, I want to thank the staff, and I look forward to hopefully continuing to work with Mr. Amate as the CDP process goes forward. The city does have jurisdiction over issuing the CDP, but we want to ensure that we're working with staff to, and that once we implement the regulations are consistent with the general vision. So hopefully Shahar can continue to stick with us. So thanks again.
Thanks so much, and thanks for coming up here. All right, so let's move to the public speakers.
Okay, we lost Supervisor Katrina Foley, so we're continuing on. We're moving on to Robert Olson and Hank Davis. Both are in the room. Robert Olson.
Hi, my name is Robert Olson. Thank you for hearing us today for these two hotels. I don't want to reiterate some of the things that Shahar has walked you through in these properties, but we think it's a great solution and a great addition to the Dana Point community, to Orange County, and the state of California. I do want to, we've been working together for 4 years on this. This has been a long process. And we've come to what I would consider an acceptance of what we could come to today in order to move forward. I just want to make clear that there's been a number of hotels that have been approved in the state of California as affordable hotels, and specifically within Dana Point, that have not been built. Why? Because they are not economically feasible. They just can't get done for one reason or another. But I will say that, you know, we're cautiously optimistic, is what you heard earlier. You have to be a hotel developer, okay? But if you dig into the documents, we're showing a blended return on both hotels of a 5.5% return. When bank loan debt right now is about 7.5%, that's pretty much an upside down investment. So that said, again, we're optimistic that we will move ahead and accept what staff's recommendations are. We think, again, a great opportunity for the community and for the state of California. We hope that you will vote for what Shahar and his team have put together, to vote yes. And I just close with saying thank you, Shahar. You've worked tirelessly to get us here today, and you're focused really into the details like none other. So thank you, Shahar. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, and thanks for your acknowledgement to our incredible staff, and thank you for working with them on what seems like it's going to be a great result. And I hope interest rates go down. I think they are. Yes. All right, next speaker, please.
All right, next is Hank Davis, and then we'll move to Zoom's.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have our Zoom speakers, Stephen Carpenter, followed by Ann Eubanks and John Tafoya.
Thank
Stephen
you.
Carpenter, when you're able to, please unmute yourself. Stephen Carpenter, I see you're in as a panelist. There you are.
Yes, good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Stephen Carpenter. I'm a resident of Dana Point. I'm here today, I previously sent in a letter, but I'm here today to thank the staff on highlighting and in the amendment, bringing out some of the reductions within the voter service building. Yes, we know the footprint is one thing, but the service is another. And in that amendment, it states 39.1% roughly was a reduction in the number of slips in that size. But one thing that's failed to be brought up are the size of the vessels that are in those slips, which is a higher density, which cutting back on any of the amenities as far as the urinals and toilets and sinks and showers should not be allowed, and it should be held at its original format of what it is, because the larger boats are going to take up, they're going to have more people on board the vessel. And the other item is, in my letter that I wrote, is that regarding the parking. The parking that is proposed for the areas on page 39 in the exhibits The distances from there to reach the boat is greater than the Department of Boating and Waterways allows in order to have that distance in order for the slip renter in order to access their boat. It's greater distance. That was a problem that we had with the original design and concept when further east on the basin, where they're going to be taking up part of the parking structure and parking in front of the structure. So I thank you today. I thank the staff and I thank the commission for your time.
All right, thank you. Next, Ann Eubanks, followed by John Tafoya and Donna Calez. Ann Eubanks.
Dear Commissioners, my name is Ann Eubanks and I'm the president of Dana Point Voters Association. We ask that you deny the LCP amendment or delay approving it with modifications until Dana Point Harbor Partners is compliant with CDP 519-0971 regarding the slip layout being built. Thomas Matt Miller of the OC Real Estate Office wrote a letter to the Commission regarding this item. In his letter, he stated his office had reviewed the matter and confirmed that the slip layout was in compliance with the CDP, but he offered no proof. Are we just supposed to believe this statement because Matt Miller said so? The simple facts: per the CDP, the average slip length shall not exceed 32 feet, and the net loss of slips shall not exceed 155, resulting in no less than 2,254 slips. Let me walk you through this clarification. There are three versions of slip layout maps. Version 1 is the CDP approved version, showing 2,254 slips with an average length of 32 feet and a maximum length of 65 feet. Version 2 is the county approved version, showing 2,269 slips with an average length of 32 feet. It's almost identical to the CDP version, except it shows 5 additional 50-foot slips and 10 100-foot slips. Version 3 is the slip layout being built by Dana Point Harbor Partners. When comparing it to the county approved layout, the net loss of 32-foot and under slips is 90, and the net gain of slips over 32 is 17. The result, a marina with 2,196 slips and an average length of 33 feet. The net loss of slips is 213, not 155. It appears this Tidelands Harbor no longer serves the general public, but is being revitalized with bias toward the wealthiest clientele, like Newport Beach, which already serves the wealthy segment. This version 3 currently being built does not come close to mirroring either the CDP plan nor the county approved plan is not in compliance.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you. We actually got Supervisor Katrina Foley back, so you can speak now.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Hart, Commissioners, and staff. I'm Orange County Supervisor Katrina Foley, and since 2023, I've had the pleasure of, am I up?
It's looking at me.
You're sideways, but we're hearing you.
We can hear you.
That's my Deputy Chief, Alyssa Napori. She's awesome too.
Still sideways, but just go ahead. It's fine.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of representing the 5th District, which covers Costa Mesa, where I live, all the way to San Clemente. It includes 32 miles of Orange County's coastline, an airport, 2 harbors, and of course our crown jewel, Dana Point Harbor. Over the past 18 months, our office has spent countless hours on this project to ensure that it uplifts our entire community. It uplifts the social and nonprofit programs in the harbor, as well as provides greater access and benefits to all the residents here in Orange County. And after significant delays with the construction moving forward, that we expand access for all Californians with these 2 hotels. With the marina and the commercial port construction well underway, I speak today in support for the approval of the City of Dana Point LCP amendment, Dana Point Harbor Hotels, with the suggested modifications, which, as you know, Dana Point Harbor Partners, the city, and the county have all agreed to accept. In addition to significantly contributing to our local economy, increasing revenues for local businesses, transit occupancy tax for the city, building both of these hotels will expand low-cost coastal accommodations in Orange County by 169 sustainable rooms. That's important too. This is an incredible opportunity for California families who can go and enjoy a fun coastal vacation with so many free recreational amenities and educational opportunities right in the harbor. As somebody who grew up very poor, was on the free school lunch program, I would dream as a kid to be able to have this opportunity. We know expanding coastal access goes well beyond hotel rooms though. And that's why I'm so grateful for the work that we've done in negotiating the social justice, environmental justice package. This will provide investments over 60 years for some of the key items. A few include $2.1 million to bring disabled persons and their families out to sail in our seas. $1.5 million to support indigenous land stewardship for the Ahashiman Nation. $1.5 million to bring Title I students through ocean educational programming and outdoor programming at our Ocean Institute. And $660,000 for sailing lessons, free camps, outdoor recreational exercise for our youth and older adults. These investments are local, they're comprehensive, they're made with a lot of good intention to be able to support and uplift our entire community, and they wouldn't be possible without approval of both hotels. I want to echo the thanks to Shahar and his team. They have been incredible, their insights, their recommendations, their guidance, the many meetings, working with our team, myself, as well as my Deputy Chief of Staff, Alyssa Napori. We are so grateful for the work and the time put in, and I respectfully request your vote in favor of the modified amendment plan. Thank you so much for your time today and your work for the Coastal Commission protecting our coast.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. And our final three speakers, John Tafoya, Donna Calez, and Jordan Sisson. John Tafoya.
Good morning. 7 more minutes. My name is John Tafoya. I'm a member of the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters. I live in the local area and live, work and recreate in the vicinity of this project. I believe that I will be impacted by the environmental impact of this project. The city should require the project to be built with contractors that will hire locally, pay prevailing wage, and utilize apprentices from state-certified apprenticeship training programs. Workforce requirements reduce construction-related environmental impacts while benefiting the local economy and workforce development. In a recent 2020 report titled Putting California on the High Road, a Jobs and Climate Action Plan for 2030, the California Workforce Development Board concluded that investments in growing, diversifying, and upskilling California's workforce can possibly affect returns on climate mitigation efforts. The South Coast Air Quality Management District recently found that local hire requirements can result in air pollutant reductions. The South Coast Air Quality Management District recently found that local hire requirements can result in Recently, the state of California reiterated its commitment towards encouraging workforce development and housing affordability through the Affordable Housing and High Roads Job Act of 2022, otherwise known as Assembly Bill 2011, which requires projects to pay workers a prevailing wage and hire from state-certified apprenticeship programs for project meeting certain sightings, affordability, and development standards. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Calez and then Jordan Sisson. Donna.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Hart and Coastal Commissioners. My name is Donna Calez, owner of Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching in Dana Point Harbor. We were the first business in Dana Point Harbor to operate in 1971, 53 years ago. My father, Don Hansen, who spent his entire life to better our community and the businesses that he loved so much, passed away in 2022. His dream was to see the Dana Point Harbor fully revitalized in his lifetime. Sadly, he did not get to see it finished, but now it's my goal to carry on his legacy and see it through. I have been engaged in this harbor revitalization plan for over 20 years, writing many letters and speaking to you in support of the overall project. I consider myself uniquely qualified to speak to this agenda item for the Dana Point Harbor hotels. I want to express my strong support for the Dana Point Harbor hotels. This LCP is most important to the Orange County economic climate and will allow for long overdue improvements and upgrades to this harbor as it relates to the current Dana Point Marina Inn. We are so supportive and have been since the plan was submitted, to have a new hotel built in the harbor, but not just one, we will have two. One with a commitment to affordability like the current one we have today. Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching relies on an affordable option for our visitors. These are members of the public that are recreational fishermen and women and children that love the ocean, and having the affordable access to the ocean that we provide. The general public loves to go out on our boats to recreate both as sport fishermen and women and also as whale watchers. Furthermore, we also serve handicapped passengers as well as underserved communities and have a harbor
Thank you so
hotel that
much.
can encompass them at a reduced
Okay,
rate.
next
Thank you
speaker,
very
please.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Jordan Sisson.
Good morning, Commissioners, for another 3 minutes. Jordan Sisson, Land Use Attorney, represent Unite Here Local 11. Who's concerned about this project? Mainly because it fails to maximize lower cost accommodations on this public trust lands, which is currently zoned for 220 lower cost rooms. In short, we are asking to reject this current proposal and direct staff to investigate whether the operator improperly raised rates beyond lower cost levels at the Marina Inn starting in 2018. Additionally, we urge you to require a feasibility study that studies considers a lower rate of return that maximizes lower cost rooms on the site, which could also be offset by a higher rate at the market rate hotels. In my minute and 20, I want to highlight 3 quick points. First, notwithstanding this project, Dana Point already suffers from a severe lack of lower cost rooms, with little opportunity to add lower cost rooms elsewhere. As you saw in the staff report, there's only 284 lower cost units as of 2022 in the city. And 136 room Marina Inn is the vast majority of the standard rooms. As compared to the Oceanside, which has maybe half as much coastland, which has a minimum protection of 375 units and an inventory of 460 units. Even the developer's data shows that there's only 2 economy hotels that already charges $100 over the lower cost threshold of $153 a night. There's simply not enough lower cost rooms here. Second, it appears that the operator removed lower cost units more than 5 years ago when it took over operations and significantly increased rates above the lower cost threshold, which should be addressed through an investigation and enforcement and remedial action, not being blessed by this amendment. This is demonstrated by the actual rates charged and the evidence in the staff report. My third point is that the feasibility analysis is flawed. Coastal staff raises the lower cost threshold by $20, relying on the Dillon Resort project, which is unrelated and unlike this project, which is 10 times larger. Furthermore, the Ocean Avenue project in Santa Monica is instructive, where the staff refused a feasibility study that relied on a 3.8 rate of return.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And I'd
All
just
right.
like to note that we have a number of people online available for questions, including from the Ocean Institute, the County of Orange, and those with the applicant.
Great, thanks so much, Chris. All right, I'd like to now return to the representative of the local government to ask if there's any rebuttal. Not required, just if you'd like. No, don't have any. All right, sounds great. To return to staff. You do. It's for local government rebuttal. Okay, thank you. Return back to staff then.
Thank you, Chair Hart. So as far as most of the comments that were received today, staff did respond to those in the staff report addendum and in the our original comments today. Just briefly with regard to Mr. Sasson's comments, these are the first time we're hearing some of these issues that are being raised. As far as the hotel rate or the rates for the existing hotel, while the existing LCP does have policy language that encourages that hotel to remain lower cost, it was a pre-coastal development, and there weren't any coastal restrictions on that hotel, related to its rates. So that's not something we were able to get our hands on. But staff's available for questions. I do want to just take a moment to thank the city, the county, and the developer for all their hard work on this project. And I too want to thank Shahar for his tremendous work on this matter. He's invested a significant amount of time and done a really tremendous job.
That's pretty obvious. Thanks again, Shahar, for all your work on this. All right, we'll bring it back to the commission for any questions, comments, and a motion on this item.
If I may.
Okay,
Not a
Commissioner.
motion, it's a question.
Question, go ahead, please.
If the applicant could address the concerns raised by John Tafoya of the Carpenters and the payment of prevailing wages for the development of these two hotels. Thank you.
So we do not have a union agreement of sorts. My partners are under construction, however, with a parking structure, and I believe it's probably 90% union. Likely, many of the trades on these two properties will be union for the hotels, just by the very nature of what we're building. So.
Do you have a commitment to use apprentices from state-approved apprenticeship programs?
For the union subs that are hired, yeah, there are apprenticeship programs involved, yes. I did want to, there was a comment made about the book. Okay.
Thanks, sir. We already closed a public comment. All right, Attorney of the Commission, ask if there are any other questions or if there's a motion. Yes, I see you. Commissioner Cummings, is that why you were doing that?
Yes.
I thought you were pointing to something in the audience.
No, I was trying
Commissioner
to get your
Cummings,
attention.
please.
First, just want to thank the staff for their hard work on this. When I was reading through the agenda report with my staff members, it was pretty confusing, and it's because of how complex it is. But I also just do want to acknowledge Mr. Swang and Mr. Amate for helping clarify what was happening here, because we were just really concerned as it related to having the low-cost accommodations and ensuring that they would be provided in kind of the cost points. I did have one question. I think it's been clarified in the presentation, but I just want to get a little bit more clarity. And so I'm just going to read this section. It's related to some of the benefits. And so it's on page 19. And it's under suggested modification number 3. So it states LUP section 5.2, page 1-5.4, before first full paragraph and immediately after suggested modification number 5, stating the total value of contributions to these programs shall equal or exceed $110,000 annually, and the hotels shall ensure adequate transportation for the program attendees. And it goes into, additionally, if the lower cost replacement hotel will offer room rates higher than 3/4, 75% of the peak season average of July and August, statewide average daily room rate adjusted by 10% for each additional occupant above 2 persons, but equal to or less than the 2022 annualized average daily rate of the existing Marina Inn adjusted for inflation using CPI, then the hotel development shall maximize the public's access to lower cost overnight accommodations on the coast by directly providing or funding lower cost overnight programming at no cost for underserved youth and their families, such as partnering with the Ocean Institute and or OC Sailing and Events Center to provide a free coastal themed overnight camping experience to underserved youth, expanding and upgrading lower cost overnight accommodation facilities at the OC Sailing and Events Center and or Ocean Institute, providing hospitality internships or any combination thereof. I guess the question that I had is to help me better understand. So that $110,000 that's annually going to be collected, I guess, if they are kind of above that, the 3/4 of the peak season, but below the 2022, those funds will be allocated to kind of one of those activities. Is that the understand? Because I guess my concern is that since it includes internships and it's not clear that those are paid internships, it's just unclear whether they would derive a higher benefit from that. And so I was just trying to get some clarity over how these programs are going to be implemented.
Thanks so much. If I may, through the chair. So the applicant, the developer, provided Exhibit 7 to the staff report. They provided a proposal. It was originally because they were not providing the 33 new rooms on site, lower cost rooms. And so they provide us with this program, which they were thinking would supplement and address that issue. And so in there you have this, there's 2 components. One is this C Camp, which the Ocean Institute already, it's underway, and they do, I think, 500 programs per year, and it's been this very successful program. And then there was also this proposal to expand the OC Selling and Event Center, add some dormitory rooms. So we were working with that. That was the original idea, and they did, provide some indication that they would be interested in doing hospitality internships. So we were thinking that just fits under the umbrella, but the idea being that we didn't want the full 110,000 going just towards one bucket, which was just sort of day use, public access and recreation. We also wanted something that's more lower cost overnight to deal with the room rate differential. So we're going off of Exhibit 7, and as part of the CDP process that the city will be doing, we'll advise them on sort of what final package makes sense.
Thanks, Ed.
And just to clarify, there is a requirement for the final plan to be developed through the coastal development permit process. The city, as the reviewing authority in this case, would be responsible for reviewing that. Of course, staff is going to keep an eye on this project, a close eye on it, and would like to be involved with the review of some of those documents as well. So we believe it'll be covered that way.
Okay, thanks. I can make the motion. I know that we're
That'd be
under time
great,
crunch.
if you'd like,
Okay.
Commissioner Cummings,
Well-
that'd be great.
Well, I guess the last comment, I just want to thank everybody for their hard work on this. And it'll be great to see how this moves forward. And thanks for the clarity on how that funding can go into those different community benefits. And so, given that we're running short on time, I move that the commission certify land use plan amendment LCP-5-DPT-21-0079-2 as submitted by the city of Dana Point, and staff recommends a no vote.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'm going to ask if there is a consensus for a no vote on behalf of the commission. All right, seeing no opposition, the motion receives a no vote, and we'll move on to motion 2.
So I move that the commission certify land use plan amendment number LCP-5-DPT-21-0079-2 to the city of Dana Point certified LCP if modified in conformance with the suggested changes recommended by staff, and I recommend a yes vote.
Thank you. Is there any objection on the commission to a yes vote?
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the second.
I just need a second. And just my shortest of comments, which is I'm continuing to be concerned about this transition from smaller slip sizes to larger slip sizes where there's less and less people who have access to slips over public trust lands. And we're seeing this over and over again, and I'm just concerned about it. So thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Wilson. So we have a motion and a second. Turn to the commission, ask if there's any objection. Unanimous approval of a yes vote on this second motion. All right, seeing no opposition, we'll move to the next motion, please.
I move that the commission reject implementation plan amendment number LCP-5-DPT-21-0079-2 to the city of Dana Point certified LCP as submitted, and I recommend a yes vote.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Turn to the commission, ask if there's any opposition to unanimous approval of a yes vote. Seeing none, motion is approved. Move on to motion 4.
I move that the commission certify implementation plan amendment number LCP-5-DPT-21-0079-2 to the city of Dana Point certified LCP if modified in conformance with the suggested changes recommended by staff, and I recommend a yes vote.
We have a second?
Yes. You do have a second.
Thanks,
And I
Commissioner Wilson.
support we're needing more hotel space in general. I'm glad we're concentrating on affordable, but also it takes less pressure off of the STR market. Thanks.
Thanks so much. All right, we have a motion and a second recommending a yes vote. Is looking to the commission to see if there is or any commissioners objecting to unanimous yes vote. Seeing none, the motion is approved. The project is approved, the LCP amendment in this case. All right, congratulations, Mr. Amate, and to the city, and ultimately to the applicant and builder of the hotel. All right, hotels, I should say. All right, the last item is the DDR from San Diego Coast?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the last item, which is number 12. This is the Deputy Director's Report for San Diego Coast District. In this packet, we're reporting the City of Carlsbad's adoption of the commission's suggested modifications related to their LCP amendments, updating their housing element and zoning. Executive directors reviewed the city's actions and are determined those are legally adequate to complete the certification process. Finally, we have 5 waivers and 1 immaterial permit extension. There's no known opposition. So we're asking whether 3 or more commissioners object to any of the waivers or the permit extension in the report.
Thanks, Mr. Schwang. Do we have any speakers?
No speakers.
All right, turn to the commission, ask if 3 or more commissioners object to any item on the deputy director's report. Seeing none, the commission concurs, and thank you very much. That concludes our meeting for June, and
Can I just wish all the fathers a happy Father's Day and happy Pride Month? See you next month.
great, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.